call, Madam Vice. Welcome to Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, our budget workshops for the city of Methuen, where we will be speaking to our department heads for today. Madam Vice, could you please take the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Pesch is here. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Samard is absent, and he did have a conflict with his daughter's graduation tonight. Councillor Valley.
Present.
Councillor DeZoglio.
Present.
Councillor Drew.
Here.
Councillor McLaren.
Here.
Councillor Marsan.
Here.
And Chair Soto.
Present.
Thank you.
With all present, thank you so much this evening. So I wanted to welcome everyone this evening, the department heads, members of the city council and the mayor, as well as the CAFO. Tonight, we continue the important work of ensuring that the city of Methuen has a budget that is fair both to our taxpayers and to our city employees. Over the course of tonight and tomorrow, we will hear from our department heads, and they will explain the request they submitted to the mayor for their respective departments. After those presentations are complete, you may, while they're presenting, you may, of course, ask questions. After they're complete, you may as well speak with the mayor and the CAFO regarding some additional questions if there are some. This evening is a workshop. You will not be voting on anything this evening. I want to make that clear. So feel ready, willing, and able to ask the questions that you want to ask, okay? So with that being said, I want to start this evening by allowing the mayor to have an initial presentation, and then we'll move on to the first department. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide, by way of just a brief introduction to our budget, a quick presentation, and then we'll pass it off to the department heads, and we'll go from there. So first of all, as I referenced in my transmittal letter, the fiscal year 27 budget is balanced. However, it is painful. On the flip side, it is, I think, responsible as we look to build a more sustainable future for our city. So this has been, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it, one of the worst years for local government going back to 2008, 2009 in the wake of the Great Recession. I've included in your binders copies of reports from the Mass Municipal Association that highlights a lot of the fiscal challenges that cities across the Commonwealth are facing. This time, though, it's not due to a subprime mortgage crisis. It's not due to the collapse of major banks and broader segments of the financial industry. Instead, this time, enormous cost pressures are hitting municipalities all at once. Also, as I referenced in my letter, this is not unlike the affordability crisis that everyday Americans across our country are facing. Our residents are tapped out by housing costs, utility bills, groceries, gas prices, healthcare expenses, according to recent data published, in fact, just a few days ago by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Putting a fresh vegetable in your shopping cart costs approximately 11.5% more today than it did a year ago. Grocery prices rose faster last month than at any point in the past 4 years. Families across Methuen feel it each and every day when they pay their bills, when they fill their gas tanks, and when they walk through the checkout line at Market Basket. Local government is now facing many of these same pressures, albeit in different ways. This is an issue, or these are issues that are fundamentally not unique to Methuen. The city of Boston right now is dealing with a $70 million budget shortfall. The ranks of the Lowell Fire Department are being decimated by roughly 15% due to their budget crisis. And the city of New Bedford is facing a $32 million deficit, a $16 million tax increase, the elimination of 94 positions, and the closure of a fire station. So with that groundwork laid, I want to share a little more of a breakdown of what we're thinking of for our budget this year. So as I've referenced previously, some of the cost pressures that we face include the following. So we have health insurance, first and foremost, is going up. We have, beyond that, special ed costs going up. We have contractual mandates going up. We have utilities going up. We have inflation going up. We have federal aid going down. And then we have state aid simply not keeping up with reality. And to illustrate that, consider unrestricted general government aid. It has been chronically, and I mean chronically, underfunded for many years. Consider the city of Westfield. In Westfield, UGA, they call it, is being underfunded to the tune of $14 million if you go back to the start of that program initially begun by the lottery. And so the issues that we have is that we have all these cost pressures and an old model of governing that simply no longer works. So the goals that I have for the budget this year are threefold. So first of all, we are going to do everything we can to avoid a Prop 2.5 override. It's simply a non-starter for the people of Methuen, especially considering the affordability crisis that I've already explained. We can't deal with a huge tax increase by way of a Prop 2.5 override. We're not going to be using free cash to cover ongoing, recurring operating expenses. That is a recipe for disaster. We will be avoiding any and all layoffs of police officers and firefighters. Absolutely out of the question. We're not doing it. We're placing the essentials first. So right out of the gate, public safety, absolutely essential. Education. We have to keep funding our schools and investing in public education. Our roads, we have a lot of work to do in terms of catching up on road work across our city. And of course, we have to keep picking up the trash. So these are the essentials that we have to continue doing, even in spite of rising cost pressures and also in keeping with maintaining these goals. Now, in terms of actions that we've taken as a city, first of all, I implemented, as I do every year, a fourth quarter spending freeze on anything that's non-essential in terms of departmental expenditures. This is something that we're going to have to keep in place going forward. We also, as of July 1st, with the exception of any vital positions relative to perhaps public works, public safety, we're going to have to initiate a hiring freeze on July 1. We have built into the budget significant overtime controls. We'll probably be getting into that later tonight with police and fire. We're going to be at a point where starting July 1, we're going to need to have weekly check-ins regarding overtime so that we can maintain strict overtime controls. We have right now built into the budget the prospect of across the board furloughs. We were originally talking about needing 106 hours of furloughs per employee. We're down to 80, trying to get that lower and lower, but the goal is to avoid layoffs. And so the best way to do that is by maintaining a system of furloughs. We're also deferring some elements of our capital improvement plan. The goal there is to reduce what we're paying in debt service in fiscal year 27, perhaps getting after some of these projects after July the 1st, so that we don't have to worry about having a lot of those expenses coming out of debt service. And then, frankly, and this is where, beyond layoffs and such and furloughs, we talk about some pain. And those are the operational cuts that come from some of those reductions. Now, another thing that I need to mention is that also factored into this plan is the need to address issues like revenue and fees and the like. So something that we referenced last night is we're going to need to talk about water and sewer rates. That's going to be unpopular, but we have to make some decisions that may be unpopular. Otherwise, if we don't have any adjustments, we're going to find ourselves in a place where we've actually been recently, where there was 5-year period that went by, no increase to water and sewer rates, and then suddenly we have a fiscal issue with our water sewer enterprise fund. Another thing that we are talking about as well, trash fees. This has been a conversation lately in terms of barrel purchases and the like, or rentals. Beyond that, too, we're talking about two new concepts for us. So one example is the so-called lift assist fees. So our fire department here in Methuen, anytime at a local nursing home or an assisted living facility, if a resident has a fall and they're uninjured by that fall, technically the staff at those facilities cannot actually go ahead and pick these people up. They call the fire department. And in municipalities across the Commonwealth, including Andover, Canton, Millis down on the South Shore, other municipalities, what they do is they don't charge, of course, the residents. They charge the facilities, or perhaps insurance, something along those lines, a lift assist fee, so that the department is able to at least collect some revenue on that basis. And so in Methuen, we've never charged that fee before. However, over the past 2 fiscal years, the fire department, Chief Toto, took a look at this and found that we've averaged 200 calls for lift assist in the city of Methuen annually. So if you were to take 200 instances of that type of situation and multiply that by, say, 500, if we were to charge a fee to these facilities or insurance, then suddenly we're talking about able to pay for a lieutenant in the budget, just for example. Beyond that, we have some of the lowest ambulance fees in the Merrimack Valley. That's something that we need to take a look at. And also, if we look at things like transfer station fees and the like, again, they're very low, but at the same time, these are fees that we simply haven't touched in a very long time, and we're going to have to do that. Another factor in the budget as well is that last year we took a step to divert meals tax revenue away from stabilization. Traditionally, that had been set up for a certain percentage to go straight into stabilization rather than the general fund. The thinking is to extend that for 1 more year. That will allow for some additional relief for our taxpayers. So those are some revenue assumptions that are built into the budget. But beyond that, I want to talk a little bit about the reform side, because this isn't simply a budget that's focused on austerity. This, I think, is an opportunity for the city. I guess the silver lining, if there is one, is to invest in some reforms. So one of the things that we're talking about doing, and I guess I'll build this in up here in the corner in terms of reforms, is we're looking at health insurance. This is something that represents an ongoing conversation with our PEC. We hope to have a meeting with them this week to share some more information. But as I referenced, some of the biggest cost pressures in the budget, once you go through, you'll see that these are big ticket items, and most of them are generally fixed, and there's not a whole lot we can do about them. Health insurance is a notable exception. So one of the issues that we've had is over the past couple of years being self-insured. If you think about health insurance, it's probably helpful to think of it, and this is going to sound like an odd comparison, but it's good to think of it kind of like trash, where the city, when we have trash output, we pay for tonnage, and we've had that conversation quite extensively recently, but ultimately it's based on the city's output. The same is true for health insurance, especially for us since we're self-funded. We pay our own claims, we have to pay all of these costs, and so when we run up significant costs in the context of health insurance, that's something that we ultimately have to pay for by way of covering through premiums and the like. So this past year, there was a review that we did of some of the prescription drugs that are causing significant harm fiscally in terms of the budget. A great example is the GLP-1 drugs. We talked about this last year. It's an issue again this year. So just cursory look at the list of prescriptions, we identified at least 2 GLP-1s that are commonly used in our plan. The cost for those 2 GLP-1 drugs, $1.5 million for 2 of the GLP-1 drugs. So starting July 1 of this year, both Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we've been talking about GIC as well, both Blue Cross Blue Shield and the GIC are eliminating GLP-1 coverage. However, for Blue Cross Blue Shield, they offer members the opportunity for organizations to buy into a rider to provide that going forward. But at the very minimum, they're going away simply due to the cost. But beyond that, one of the things that we found, and we're going to be sharing this with the PEC, is Sean Cronin, who was the fiscal stability officer for the city of Methuen when we were under state oversight several years back. He brought in a group of consultants to take a look at our health insurance and come up with some suggestions, and they found, at least at that time, significant savings. We're finding savings that potentially have ballooned over time if we had taken advantage of that. So that's something that we're going to talk with the PEC about and get into that a little more with them before we bring anything back to the council. Regarding special ed is similar to health insurance, one of the biggest so-called budget busters in the entire budget. We are required both, I believe, legally and morally to provide these services to students who live in our city. But the challenge is that the special ed system as it exists today is broken. It's largely governed by state mandates and the like. We don't receive, I think, sufficient aid to cover a lot of these costs. So in terms of our out-of-district tuitions that we pay to send students for placements out of the district, those costs are astronomical. So in one case, there's a local school that the city sends 13 students to, and the cost in fiscal year 27 to send 13 students to this one school will be $3.5 million. There's an example in one case of a residential day out-of-district placement, and in fiscal year 27, that's expected to cost over $600,000 for one student. And so this is just an illustration of some of these cost drivers. They're not impacting only Methuen. This is across the entire Commonwealth. And so another reform that we really need to take a look at is special ed reform, similar to health insurance. So when it comes to special ed reform, the key is to do whatever we can to try to bring these students that we're sending out and having to pay through the nose to send out, trying to do whatever we can to either bring them back in or at least stop the bleeding and prevent more students in the future from having to go out for these services. And so one of the things that the school committee has been talking about is the prospect of investing in a program to try to bring these services back in, but it's namely for students who are dealing with autism. And so this would be a program that we'd be able to offer in-house and aim to try to achieve significant savings, at least over time, so that we're not maintaining this extremely unsustainable situation, especially in the context of special ed. Another thing that is an ongoing discussion on the part of the school committee is school choice. So this phrase is something that can often instill some big feelings, right? There's a lot of opinions on either side of this debate. However, what I want to point out is that this year, the city of Methuen, our public schools, have seen a decline in enrollment of roughly 200 students. That has an impact on our funding formulas and the like. Now, if you look to the city of Newburyport, right, every municipality is dealing with a decline in enrollment for the most part across the Commonwealth. But if you look at the city of Newburyport, what they have is, for their school choice program, they serve 189 students, and through that, they collect over $1.2 million in revenue from their school choice program every year. And so there are, I think, both sides to that coin. Some compelling arguments for and against. There's concerns, I know, with our current staffing and whether we are truly capable of providing these services. However, keep in mind that our enrollment's already down, right? And so I think given that decline in enrollment, this is something that we could potentially do to generate some revenue and put us in a little bit more of a sustainable place. Beyond that, beyond health insurance in schools, we are actively engaging with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission in industrial zoning reform. So right now, if you look at our industrial zoning, that aspect of the zoning code, in my opinion, it's kind of stuck in 1996, not 2026. And so right out of the gate, if our system that we have by way of zoning is antiquated, especially in terms of definitions and uses by right and the like, if you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to find a location for your company, you're going to likely look at the places where you'll find an easier path to be able to bring your business into the municipality you're looking at. So right now, Andover, town of Andover, for example, has a relatively modernized zoning code in the context of industrial zoning. You look at municipalities along the 128 belt, Waltham, Burlington, Beverly, et cetera, they have a modernized industrial zoning code that is playing to the economy of today rather than, years past. And so consider that in Methuen, we have, aside from Haverhill, the lowest commercial tax rate in the Merrimack Valley. I think Haverhill might be slightly lower, but Lawrence is higher, Lowell's higher, North Andover's higher, Andover's higher. All across the Merrimack Valley, our commercial tax rate is extremely competitive. Our location is amazing. We all know that, right? We have a great workforce in our city, but we need a zoning ordinance that matches that and helps us in terms of being more competitive in terms of our local economy. The other thing too, and we've been talking about this quite a bit for a long time, trying to get this right rather than diving in too quickly and not getting the results that we need and expect. We talk about grants. So we have a contract that's awaiting signatures from this chosen vendor that we're working with in the context of grants. And in the budget this year, you'll see that rather than simply funding, half year, partial year for that type of service, we have now a full year worth of funding to go after grants. And this is an area that we really need to double down on. Right now, each department is doing their own things in terms of grants. DCD is a very active grant generating department, the PD, the fire department, et cetera, all trying to generate a lot of grants, but we need to double down on that. Another area as well, we talk about energy. We need to deliver additional energy savings, and one great way to do that is through continued pursuit of investments in solar projects, broader energy efficiency projects, but I'm thinking namely of things like solar. I think that is something that we need to continue to embrace and get after. And so what we see this year, we see a lot of cost pressures. We have, I think, ambitious goals that most other municipalities are not in a place to try to chase after. There are municipalities across the Commonwealth that are asking their voters for Prop 2.5 overrides. We're not doing that. There are other municipalities, I know many of them, that are using free cash to balance their budget. We're not doing that. And if you look at municipalities in the Merrimack Valley, across the Commonwealth, you're seeing police officers get laid off, you're seeing firefighters get laid off. Over my dead body will we do that? And so I think our goal is clear. The direction that we're aiming in, I think, is ultimately suited to ensure that we are able to stop kicking the can down the road, make the reforms that we need to so that we can be in a more sustainable place, and ultimately end this vicious cycle of costs going up and we can't function. That cannot be our future. And so this is a step in the direction of preventing that and protecting city services while we aim to try to limit the burden on taxpayers. So that is my initial introduction. What we'll do is, I believe the chair will call up department heads and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that informative presentation. I hope you guys took notes, as you may have questions later on. Okay. I also wanted to I wanted to say thank you because I know we had to extend our meeting to this week due to the fact that the administration needed an additional week for their budget. So I want to thank you because I know you probably had to reschedule some important events. So first on the agenda today, we have the city clerk for your presentation.
Okay. Just give me a minute to sign on my
Yeah,
my
of course. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, yeah. That's page 28, counselors, for the city clerk budget. And Madam Clerk, just if maybe at the end of your presentation or somewhere along the presentation, I wanted to ask what your highest priority was for your department, if you were aware of what your percentage cut was for your department. And those are two questions that I just wanted to throw out there up front.
Can everybody hear me?
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm here tonight to talk about the city clerk's office and budget 27. Everybody has the right page, I assume, and we can start with, my budget primarily consists of three big factors. First, obviously, being the personnel, which is pretty much self-explanatory. You'll see the figures with the furlough and then the end amount. And the next big factor in my budget is obviously the election service line item. I'm probably going to jump around a little bit and not go line by line. So the election service budget, as you can see, is bigger than last year's budget by almost like half. So this year it's 120,000, and the reason being it's so much more than last year was because it's a state election. So state elections run differently than a municipal election, obviously. So the state election, we'll have a primary in September, the general election in November. With the primary, we have 1 week of early voting. That'll be at the police station. It won't be in-house. And we'll have 2 weeks of early voting for the November election. So primarily this part of the budget, I'd say about 40,000 of the election service budget comes from payroll, from all my poll workers. So on average, on each election, it's $20,000 on each election day. So it's $40,000 roughly on September 1st, and on November 7th, it's $20,000 more. So $40,000 just on election day personnel, roughly. And then in August, during our first week of early voting, which will be a whole week, not the weekend, that's about $5,000. Primarily, I try to send someone from my staff to cut down on the costs of having outside people come in, on my poll workers. But now that I've dropped half a person, I still have my own office to run. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe I can send someone from my staff to cover, but maybe not. So that's why it's about $5,000 of outside expenses. The early voting for the November election is 2 weeks plus weekends. So that's roughly about $12,000. I have about 4 people, 2 check-ins, 1 manning the ballot box, and 1 just making sure people don't leave with the ballot. So I usually have about 4 people on each day. So most of my budget consists of personnel for election services. I also have to provide food for the workers. I have to rent U-Hauls to transport. So what happens on election day, I don't know if everybody knows this, everybody comes here and then everything gets transported to the schools. We have to use U-Hauls in case of rain. We used to use the DPW trucks, but they're not covered. So we didn't want to take any chances of it raining that day. So we rent U-Hauls to transport all our election equipment on the 2 election days. So that's roughly about $500. And also, we have vote by mail. So vote by mail is going to be starting. You're going to get a postcard in the mail starting, and this all comes from the state. It's not coming out of my office. So sometime in mid-June, you'll get your first vote by mail card. You fill it out if you want to and send it back. So it all depends. So a lot of election stuff is, usually we're pretty accurate with how many ballots are going to go out, how many are going to come back. So depending upon that, that's another increase of having vote by mail, because with the postcards going out, usually people fill them out. Then obviously what comes in has to go out. So we have to bring in more personnel to help us with the vote by mail. So that's probably roughly $5,000 there. What we're going to do is use some of our seniors for the senior work program. So half of them will come from the seniors and half will come from the poll workers. So again, that's more personnel, probably $5,000 there. And we also, in the November election, we'll probably have to bring in more personnel for what we call advanced processing. So I'm not sure if everybody knows what advanced processing is. So when the ballots come back to us that have gone out, we open them so they don't have to be done on election day. So just figure, say 8,000 ballots come back from early voting. We open them up beforehand. So that's quite a task to do that. So the reason why we do this is because on election day, we anticipate, a very busy election this year. And it's way too busy at the polls to open all the ballots that come in, vote by mail, and to accommodate all the voters. So we do advanced processing, which is very, very time consuming. So everything has to match perfectly. So I'm anticipating probably another $15,000 to do that. And this is just like an approximate, because we're going to try to use the seniors as much as we can. So everybody knows about the senior work program, right? Okay, so we have about 15 people that signed up for that. So some of them we haven't called yet. We're saving them for the election. So if you happen to get any calls from the seniors, why haven't I been called? The reason being, we're saving them for September, October, and November. Okay, and the remaining part of the election services comes to the company that we use, LHS. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that company that does all our computers. So they do primarily all of our poll pads maintenance, all of our image casts that the ballots go through. So with that, our bill to them this year is probably going to be about $37,000. And we have to rent the memory cards that go into the machines. We have the coding of the machines. We have the maintenance of the machines. We have the software of the machines. We have various supplies that we only can buy from LHS, and that's roughly comes out to be about $37,000. So with that being said, that comes out to about $118,000 with all the election costs, the majority being on personnel. Any questions, or you want me to go through the whole thing and then ask questions after?
As you please.
Okay, any questions so far? Counselor Drew? Oh,
Not sure how this whole thing works. So, on the election services, I mean, you got 120,000, but as we look at like the historical 10-year expenditures, election services has never gone over 88,000, and that was in 2017. Over the last 3 years, the expenditures haven't exceeded 68,000. It just seems like a whole lot.
it does, because last year it was just a local election, so if you're looking at last year's figures, it's half of that.
Oh,
So-
I'm looking at the last 10 years.
Okay. Well, prices have gone up. Our rates went up to pay all our poll workers. So it's just like an increase of the pay for the poll workers. A lot of times we did the early voting in-house. Now we're doing it at the police station. We don't have the room. So in-house, didn't have to pay the personnel. So it's just, like I said, 40,000 for the person. We have to have like 4 or 5 people that work each poll during election day, because remember that our ballots now, I heard for our November election, it's going to be 3 pages. So with that being said, we have to have a lot more, we're probably adding another person at each poll, because the ballot's going to be 3 pages long.
All right, I mean, I'm looking at 25 actuals with 63,000, 24 actuals, 66, 23, 23,000. 22, 64,000, 21, 36,000, 2020, 46, 2019, 24. See, it's knowing what we're coming up against. That's a significant increase.
It's not padded. The budget is, I know it's increased from last year and the year before, but our costs, like just our costs to LHS have like doubled what we used to pay them. So it's just, trying to look at.
And too, if I could jump in really quickly, also included in there, the state is requiring us the deactivation.
Yes.
So the state's requiring us another unfunded mandate to do mass deactivation, which is going to cost us over $10,000, I believe you had
I
said,
put that actually in the printing.
in the printing line. So that's included in her budget this year as well.
I'm going to try my hardest to cut down on the payroll. I know it's a lot of money. It's $40,000 for both elections. If anybody can think of creative ideas so we don't have to pay the personnel, I know I've talked to the mayor, and he suggested we might even be able to bring people from City Hall in to help. So that might cut down a little, savings for the personnel possibly. But it's costly to run an election, and people don't know the back job of an election. The majority of the people that are probably watching tonight just think you can show up on election day, you get your ballot, and you put it through the machine. It's months of preparation. You need manpower to make it work. And we pride ourselves on having, elections that are tip top. So with that, it costs money. And I know it's a crunch year. I know we're trying to watch every single penny that we spend. But and like I said, I'm going to try to knock that down a little bit so it won't be that much. But right now, that's the numbers that I'm coming up with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Okay, so the other big expense would be under my printing line, which would be $47,000 for printing. Now, out of the printing line, what that consists of is the census. The city census going out is about $24,000. The next would be like our dog tags, our street listing books, our birth paper that we print our birth certificates on is about $5,000. Street listing books about $2,000. And then what Maggie was just mentioning is the mass deactivation, which is going to be about $15,000. That's going to LHS. So that comes out to be roughly $45,000. And the rest of the budget consists of office supplies, just the general office supplies, water, binders that we put all our vital records in, and the bond and dues. For me, the clerk has to be bonded, and it's $500. And then the binding budget is some of our books we have to send to the bind. We usually do about 2 a year because they're older books and the bindings are all falling apart and we want to preserve them as best we can. So that's pretty much the city clerk's budget. Any other council?
Thanks. Just wondering, you said the census comes out of the 47,000. What's the census service line item?
That's postage.
So that's just postage for the census.
So we
And
pay
then the-
postage to the company that sends out the census. So LHS, we pay them postage and printing.
Okay, thanks.
It's confusing, but that's, yeah, it's costly to send out the census.
Promise I'm not picking on you. So looking at again, back in the last 10-year actuals of your printing, you were nowhere near 47,000. I think your highest year was in 24 for 20,000. Along with your census service, I mean, that was your highest again was 14,000, and that was in 25.
Well, postage did go up.
Yep, I understand
We
that.
get these, I got that quote directly from LHS for the census, for the postage. And Methuen has increased in population as well, so more people, more census going out. That's why it's important to answer it.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So LHS is the company that we use. Have we ever looked, this is my first time on the city side, have we looked at other companies that could be similar to LHS and possibly go out to bid for them?
We haven't. The reason why we love LHS is because they're one town over. So there's a crisis with one of our computers on election day, they're here in 5 minutes. But we have not gone out to bid on any other company. We've worked with them since I've been here. They're a great company. They give us loaners if our machine, and just the last election last year, 2 of our machines broke down. They were there in 5 minutes. So we like the proximity to where it is in Methuen, Salem, New Hampshire. But we could check around and see but I know all the local clerks in the Merrimack Valley, they all use this company. But it wouldn't hurt. We could possibly go out to another company and see what they offer.
Yeah, I'm just saying, instead of depending on one company, and I know they're a good company and I see that it benefits us, but with the time, with the budget, the way it is, I feel like we shouldn't leave options off the table right now. But if it proximity and all those other things have to apply as well.
Right.
So I just want to make sure, though, when we're doing something like this, we just make sure we have options for us.
Yep, that's a good idea. It doesn't hurt to look elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Madam Clerk. Okay, next on the agenda, our Treasurer Collector's Office. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Sure, of course. The treasurer's office does very simple tasks, essentially. I mean, they're obvious to me. I'm not 100% sure they're obvious to everyone in the room. We send out bills for real estate, personal property, excise, water, sewer, and we collect all the revenue from those sources as well as every other type of revenue that comes into the city. Our biggest line item is postage because we mail out all those bills. And if you all live in the
I'm
city.
sorry, I forgot to let them know the page. So if,
Oh, I'm sorry.
page 24, guys, my apologies. Yeah.
We should be all in order, no? The copy of the budget I got, we're all just in order.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I just wanted to give them the page where to look for the, thank you. And I'm sorry for interrupting.
No worries, no worries. Our biggest line item is postage because we send out the bills. They've already saved the money before I got here by sending 2 real estate and personal property bills per year as opposed to 4. In other towns I worked in, they sent 4, which is a huge cost savings. Our office invests the revenue, and if someone doesn't pay, another decent expense that we have is to try to collect any unpaid real estate by liening it. Let's see. I don't see any questions based on what we do in our budget. All of our line items have been the same probably as other years. There's been no real increases in expenditures. There's been a lot of decreases in in the budget. Essentially, if someone doesn't pay their bill, then we have to advertise them, send a constable. We're also going to use legal advertising for the abandoned property checks. I'm afraid I'm going to need a little bit more than that, but I can at least do some this year. Postage, the post office anticipates increasing postage twice every year, and they've been very faithful, unfortunately, in their promises in the past, about 6.5% per time. Our budget is very small compared to the other departments. I don't know if anyone has any questions. It's very straightforward. We don't change much.
Counselors, are there any questions?
I'm going to ask a lot of questions.
I'm that person. I understand.
So I see, I mean, there's some under what looks like cuts from what you've actually expended over the last few years. Some of your line items, like the legal advertising, you're half of what you've spent in previous years.
That's correct. They changed the law.
Yeah.
And I still have 2024 real estate on the books. And before that, we're very accountant-like in that we want to close out the books. We want to leave 5 years of receivables on the books for things like motor vehicle excise, but we don't want to leave anything on the books for real estate. So we do our two bills. We do our demand, all of our late notices, and then we would place a lien on the property. But I've been dragging my feet on purpose for two reasons. One of them being after I lien them, I receive 8% interest as opposed to the 14% I'm getting now, and the additional costs of hiring our tax sale attorney. It's good for the residents for me to find them and email them, inundate them with late notices. It's good. It saves us money. We don't have to advertise them. We don't have to pay the registry of deeds for the instrument of taking, and it helps the residents as well to not have to pay those fees. Our attorney's fees are high. We need outside legal counsel. It's very specialized.
Okay, thank you. As for your staff, the people in your office, looks like we're seeing some reductions, and looks like there's going to be furloughs and that kind of thing. Is there going to be an impact to the amount of productivity that you feel in your office? What kind of hit are we going to see?
We're trying not to. I'm a little weary of that.
It's fair.
Frankly, I would like a little less of a hit for employees.
Okay.
If I had a choice.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you
You're welcome.
so much. All right. Next, it is the Assessor's Office, page 23, counselors. Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tristan Hoare, Chief Assessor. So the Board of Assessors Office is principally responsible for the valuation of all properties subject to taxation in the municipality. As you know, we split this tax rate commercially and residentially, and therefore the methodologies employed for commercial, industrial property and residential property are two very different animals. We use the sales approach when we are looking at residential property, and we use the income approach when we look at commercial industrial. In addition to setting those values to then be set against the tax rate, we then have those values audited and subject to a robust examination by the state every year when we put everything through the gateway system. Moreover, we then are subject every 5 years to the revaluation system from the state, which is an audit on the audit. And thereafter, we also have the considerably more pleasant job of issuing exemptions to those who qualify from our office. If you take a look over the breakdown of the expenditures, you will see the principal driving expenditure is staffing. And thereafter, there are a number of other expenses, professional services and revaluation provided by our CAMA system, that's Patriot Properties. They provide a robust backdrop to us using a sophisticated computer system that applies valuation to the properties according to the Commonwealth State methodology. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Councilor?
I'll ask it. I'll ask the elephant in the room. How come the department head is not presenting?
So, as you know, the Board of Assessors, the chair of the Board of Assessors, is technically the department head for the department. However, by common sense function, they are not full-time, and they do not work in the office on a day-to-day basis. So the leader of that team, who is working in that office on a day-to-day basis, is here presenting regarding their operations.
So, nothing to the gentleman. He's responsible for this budget?
The budget was actually produced by Suzanne before she departed, and Mr. Orr has picked up the ball and is running with it in the context of the day-to-day operations of the department and putting all this to work.
What I mean by responsible for it is in FY27, he's responsible to attain that every line item is appropriately spent, and he's running the day-to-day.
Well, ultimately, that's a function of the administration. So I get where you're going, but the Board of Assessors is not able to run this office on a day-to-day basis. We don't have any full-time staff members who are working in the assessing office who are members of that board. This is the system that we have. If you don't like it, change it.
Will do.
Any further questions? May I ask a question, Mr. Hoare?
Yes.
You're gonna, I see that one position has been eliminated and you have two other positions under you. With the furlough that may be implemented, how do you think this office may operate without that position that was gone, that's now gone? Do you think it's...
I think the candid answer is less than at premium. We will find a way to make it work. It will require rolling up sleeves and getting down to it, and I may sacrifice some free hours in order to get things done. And there may be the opportunity to look at. We already employ Patriot to do some inspection, and it may be that we can employ them further. Obviously, that doesn't require health insurance or retirement, so it's a considerably cheaper option. Will I feel the loss of a member of my staff who I think contributes greatly? Absolutely. Is it an ideal situation? Very far from it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Human Resources, that's on page 26.
Good evening, counselors.
Good evening.
As you'll see, in FY27, the HR expenses are being reduced by approximately 50% to my total budget. Most of the department's expenses are associated with the hiring of new employees and on the advertisement of new positions. Given that the city is going to be entering a hiring freeze for the foreseeable future, a number of my expenses have been reduced considerably. You'll also see in my personnel line item that in trying to reach a certain amount of savings with the least minimal impacts on the day-to-day operations of the department, we have left only $15,000 to accomplish DEI initiatives, which we are certainly going to be able to do. The ADA coordinator piece and that function will be moved to the DPW department, and that's kind of how we'll be handling the loss of that position.
Did you raise your hand? Okay. Counselors, any questions for Human Resources? Madam Caffo, I think I neglected reminding the department heads to remind me of the percentage cut. I think you just reminded me when you said 50%. Would you be able to, at the end, make sure that we get those numbers, please? Because just on a rundown so they can write it down.
Just to make sure that I have that right, it's the change.
What the reduction
much
was
the
from what they
original ask.
proposed, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. No questions on HR? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, you do have a question, Councilor DeZoglio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I look at your certain line items, like professional services and going down the line in 2025, it had like a similar cut in the sense, how were you able to function back then? Would you say that this probably going to sustain the same impact this year coming up with functioning wise? And how did you manage through that storm back in 2025?
In 2025, we had pretty much the same providers, but of course, as every department, the services that are being provided through the HR department are going up in cost. So at that time, I probably got more for less. At this time, I'll probably stay level, but the costs are going up. So for professional services, for example, I do pay for the city's EAP program through that line item, All One Health. So that's been a constant through each of the fiscal years since I've been here. That said, the costs do go up yearly. I think this year what I'm going to try to do is take more advantage of some of the additional services that they provide that aren't necessarily at a cost to the city, perhaps in the form of free trainings or other services that they are able to offer. So that will be something that I explore. I think that, like all departments, we will weather the storm. It won't be ideal, but we can do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, moving on. Employee benefits and insurance, page 42.
So this is actually me, so I'm just going to go from here, if
Okay.
that's okay. So employee benefits included on this line are multiple things, the biggest being group health insurance, but I'm going to circle back to that one because it's a big one. But included here are life insurance, which is something that we split with the employees 50-50. It's something that the employees aren't required to have, but can opt into. And if they do opt into it, they pay 50%, we pay 50%. That's the case for retirees as well. The amount that the retirees get is a policy of $5,000, and the amount active employees get is $20,000. That is what our portion is as far as those premiums go. The Medicare tax, that is the employer's portion of payroll tax. We pay for the city and school department's payroll tax, and so it comes out of there. The reduction that you see there is because of all of the reductions in the payroll line being reflected, that we wouldn't need to pay as much out in payroll tax. The $1,000 is a placeholder really for transfer to compensated absences. It's a standard amount that we put there. We're doing the analysis now as far as whether or not we're going to need to request additional funds at the end of this year in order to put additional funds into that reserve account. Just as a reminder, compensated absences is when someone leaves the city, whether they retire, resign, et cetera, it's their accrued time that gets paid out to them, usually based on whatever agreement is in their CBA. And finally, the group health insurance. I know the mayor has spoken about this at length. There are multiple pieces that are included in this line. Active medical plans, active HRA contributions to offset a portion of employee deductibles. Also included are retirees supplemental medical plans, the MedX plan. And then there's also prepayment for MedX. There's a few retirees that don't qualify for Medicare, and so we pay a prepayment in order to allow them to be on the MedX plan. In the end, it actually is cheaper for us to do it that way, and so cheaper for them and cheaper for us. So all of those things are included in the group health insurance line. And Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk to the process. I know you've already spoken a little bit about the health insurance, but where we are in that process.
So, yeah, we, as I referenced earlier, we're in the process of talking with the PC about some reforms that I think we need to take a look at. So that meeting, we're hoping to have it this week, and then we can have some more information to share probably next week. But there are other factors that we've been diving into in terms of what is legally available to us by way of options to address claims overspend and the like. And so this is very much a fluid aspect of our budget, but it is something that has stayed the same year after year after year without any changes. And we are reaping the consequences of that. And so this is one of those areas that we need to address as soon as we can. Thank you.
And just one other thing I want to note here is that just as a balance so that you understand, right now, our active employees and our retirees that are on the plan are about the same amount, which is very abnormal. Usually you see way more active employees than retired employees on the plan, so we're a little bit abnormal there. And I also just wanted to note that this increase is actually net of a savings that we will see with coming off of the GLP-1 coverage. So it looks big, but it would have been even bigger, but it's net with that reduction. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Counselor? Counselor DeZombio.
I was just looking at the line item that says mosquito control projects, and it from 2024 to now, it's gone up about $11,000. What is that entailing?
Sure, so I'm going to just speak to that really quickly. You're looking under the state assessments.
Yeah.
That's, the state requires those payments. They give us those numbers. So the state, when they come out, it's called the cherry sheet. When they come out, they say, this is how much money we're going to give you, and this is how much money we're going to take from you. And so they dictate those numbers.
And can I ask you, like, what are they doing? Are they like spraying pesticides and like killing the mosquitoes, or I just don't understand.
So this is simply money taken from us by the state. We have no choice but to factor them into the budget. They're required by the state.
I will note in the little packet that I had left on your desks, I did include a copy of the cherry sheets, the current cherry sheets, which include the assessments and the receipts, so you can see a breakdown of where we're getting those funds directly from the state,
Okay.
just as your reference.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have those, Counselor, on your? That's a cherry sheet that she's referring to. Just want to make sure that you have them so you can, in case you have further questions on those numbers. Any other questions on employee benefit and insurance? Seeing none, I think we can move on to contributory retirement. Is that still?
That's going to be me, yes. So this one's very straightforward. This is our cost to pay annually towards our retirement system. So the Methuen retirement system is a standalone system. They actually sit in my department, but they are standalone, and so they assess us every year how much we are going to have to pay them in order to pay our retirees. So I actually made a copy, if I could just pass out a copy of the assessment for fiscal year 27, and that's where we're getting those funds from. What you will see on this is page 2. It breaks it down between the city of Methuen, the school department. So the school department, and that's for employees that are not on mass teachers. Anybody who's on mass teachers would obviously default to that retirement system. However, there are many employees that are also on our system. Also, the Methuen Housing Authority has a portion of it, and the water sewer will have a portion of it. So you'll see in our line in front of you, the city of Methuen and the school department's numbers added together on that line. And then later on, when we talk about water sewer, you'll see that amount appropriated directly from that budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Just allowing a minute for them to digest it, yeah. Yep.
So this number is where you got it?
No, not the total number. So it's going to be the city, hold on, I'm going to add it together to make sure I don't speak out of turn here.
Guys, by the way, that's on page 42 as well. I didn't mention it.
Oh, good. It matches. It's actually just the city and the school. Those two numbers together is what we report in the general fund retirement line.
Okay, so the housing and the sewer are,
The housing authority pays their own, so they get assessed separately. They're not on our books. And the water sewer pays its own, so you'll see that as a different line in the water sewer enterprise fund when we talk about it tomorrow.
okay, so that makes the 17,261,000.
Yep, those first two numbers in that far
Thank you.
right column.
Just confused by that number.
Yep.
Wasn't matching.
Any further questions? Not, we'll move on. Contributory retirement, same page 42.
That's what we just talked about.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Community development, page 29. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, councilors. Make sure everybody's on the page.
So 29.
Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak about this budget for the Department of Economic and Community Development, which over the last few years is best described as being a modest budget. So we're moving from modesty to austerity this year with additional reductions, but all manageable considering the environment that we all know we are in, and other departments have alluded to prior to my getting up here. What we have is right now a staff of 6.5 full-time equivalents manning the office, staffing the office as it is. That includes the director, my position, the community development director's position, division director's position, which is what manages the block grant funding that we receive through a competitive process with the state, but is actual federal dollars. And we have the director of planning, which is the person who staffs all the planning, but also provides professional staff support to the Community Development Board. The department supports 4 boards, 3 of which are very, very active. We have the Community Development Board, which meets monthly. We have enough in the budget here to support that from an administrative and a professional standpoint. We have the Conservation Commission, which meets twice monthly, and with the conservation officer and a clerk supporting that, we've got bare minimum to support that commission as well. The Historic District Commission is another commission that meets regularly, meets monthly. We don't have dedicated support for that beyond the support we get through a modest contract we have with a technical historical consultant who's been invaluable to the city. So the clerks in our office will share the responsibility of staffing, providing administrative support to the Historic District Commission. And then there's a fourth public body that meets, but only on an as-needed basis, called the Preservation Committee, which takes up issues regarding demolition permit applications affecting historic property. So those are sort of the daily functions of the office, and that doesn't include what we do as a collective team to procure grants that not just affect community and economic development, but affect the schools, affect transportation, affect public works, affect health and code enforcement. Right now, the city, the CD department is managing at varying levels of when it started versus when it's finished. $7.2 million in grants, the most recent of which was the announcement this week of a $1.7 million competitive grant. Methuen was only a dozen or so communities to receive any money for greening up the Timony School. And so we're hip deep in grants management and grants compliance to the point where we're down a senior planner position, we're down an administrative clerk position. So it's all hands on deck with respect to grants compliance and grants management. I'm working on the Lower Broadway project, which is interesting that getting familiar with the state reporting systems, et cetera. But it literally is, nobody is standing idly by while there needs to be their work to be done to either procure new grants or manage the grants that we have. The expense side of the budget really speaks for itself. There are two areas in the budget that where if there's any, to call it flexibility might be giving it too much, but where there's any latitude, it sits in our professional services line item and in our matching grants line item. And the mayor has left the matching grants line item consistent with what councils have mentioned about us pursuing every grant that we can, where those grants in the application process require matching funds. We've got an amount there that we can apply to it. The professional services have been reduced by half of what I asked for. Again, that's an area where we use to fill gaps with respect to if it's additional grant matching funds, we've moved money then to that from there. But we also will do small contracts to deal with everything from items that we don't anticipate, like at Forest Lake, whether there's issues around management of some of the wildlife or things that we didn't necessarily know were out there. We find out about them, and this professional services provides us, again, a modest pot of money to be able to do those things. And generally they come up as a result of concerns or issues that arise from residents. Other than that, the budget pretty much speaks for itself. I mentioned the historic planner line item. We get far more in value of her services than we currently pay out, but that's such as it is. We don't have a dedicated historic planner, don't have one on staff. It's something that it's an aspiration of the department, but clearly not the time this year to be asking for anything new. So that's pretty much the snapshot of the community development department. And if there's anything particular you want to ask me, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Councilors, any questions for the director? Yeah? Councilor DeSoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for proceeding with your presentation. But the thing I've been advocating more and more, me and you have talked more, as you were talking, basically your grants management portion, you need more help than that side. And with the way the city is going right now, it's to both of you, you and the mayor, this company that we're planning on buying, having come in for grants, how is that going to work between your department and them?
I view it as a welcome addition. That's just another arrow in the quiver, another tool in the tool chest for us to have actual effort being put into procuring outside funds. I know that the position that's been discussed or the service being discussed, it goes beyond just what might be applied for by the community development department. So that's a plus. But where there's overlap, it's not going to be overlap that is detrimental. It's going to be, we need the help we can get.
But, and the second question is, because these companies, we just talked about the matching grants, with only $40,000, the thing I'm concerned about, what we purchased this company to do that grant portion, with all these opportunities that could get, $40,000 is going to go like that quick. So if we're paying, if I saw the amount, and I don't want to say the amount, we paid a good money for this company possibility to come in. I just don't want to come back in a year and we only applied for $100,000 worth of matching grants and we didn't get money for our buck. So that's the only thing. It's not that I want to take money away from you. I really want to see what we could do to like add money. Well, but I can't do that. But I just feel like we're under funding this line item, especially when we're in the city right now in the condition that we're in. So,
I mean, if it's anything in terms of I certainly appreciate that, and I know the department, I don't think it's anything anybody disagrees with, but given where we are, if we're, between the Community Development Department does and what the service would provide, we're finding ourselves in need of a matching grant of some number that exceeds what's here or anywhere else in any other department budget, then I think at that time would appropriately come back to the council with the mayor's support and say, we have a matching grant opportunity. The challenge with doing it that way sometimes is the turnaround time, right? And we could perhaps use emergency preamble, but we generally know, you know early enough in the application process whether a grant requires a match versus recommends a match versus no requirement or recommendation of a match. Where it requires a match, we generally know early enough. The challenge is going to be for the council when you get the request, well, do we get the money yet? Well, we don't know. So it's sort of chicken and egg thing. But it's certainly manageable. And I don't know, between the $40,000 that's set aside in there now and what we have for professional services that could essentially be used, less so now if it's cut by half from what we had last year, we can still do some good things, and we'll continue to do that. But I think, I defer to the mayor and Maggie on this, whether we would want to increase at this point. I would suggest that we, leave well enough alone right now, see what we can do. We're going to continue to do what we're doing. And if we have an opportunity to get millions in grants, if we come up with thousands in matching funds, then we will be back here to do that.
okay. Thank you.
And just wanted to mention, you'll notice that that's one of the line items that I decided not to reduce, knowing that we're making this expanded effort.
Councilor Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wilson, just for my own, I don't know what is Safe Haven Coordinator?
That's a line item that's in my budget, but it's not functionally part of my department. I'll leave it to the CAFO to.
That's to the Arlington neighborhood.
Okay.
It's been a carryover in the budget since it was about 5 years ago, not quite, just about 4 or 5 years ago when the Department of Health, Human Services and Inspection was created. It was created out of Economic and Community Development. That was all part of this. So there are some instances of things that have just kind of still reflected here in the line item, but it's not my responsibility.
So I know it's part of Arlington neighborhood, but what exactly does it do? What does it service?
Think of it like so I'm not intimately familiar with the operations of the Methuen Arlington neighborhood as a nonprofit organization. I support them, and I'm often in touch with Linda Susi. We're simply a pass-through entity for those funds that ultimately come from, I think it's CDBG or something along those lines. But all we do is act as a pass-through.
Okay, I understand that. Appreciate it. I know what you're talking about now. One last question. Do you feel comfortable on your budget, the way it sits, that you're going to be responsible for, that you're going to be able to effectively grow the base of everything in the city and help economically develop it properly?
We're going to maximize every tool that we have, human and otherwise, downstairs. So yes, we'll be able to manage through this. We will. I feel confident. I mean, I have a long history, as I hope the CAFO would confirm, both in this position and in my previous role as a city clerk, of staying under budget in a healthy way every year. And that's because my first initiation to local government, I don't want to say how many years ago, but decades ago, was in a budget office in a city. So that never leaves me. And I'm always looking for ways to try and make do with what we have. That said, if I do need it, I'll come back and ask.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
If I could note too, conservation, I know it's separate on the schedule, but it is included in the budget. that you
Perfect.
talked about.
That, I was actually going to ask. So you will report on conservation as well?
Yes, that
correct?
actually comes, it's, again, that's an example of a sort of an old budget structure that when the conservation was treated as its own department,
Yeah,
it comes,
so it's-
the conservation officer
You
reports
just
to
did
me.
that. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, if there are no, yes, Counselor DeZoglio. Yes.
I had one more. Clothing allowance. What is that for?
Clothing allowances, I believe, contractual.
It's a contractual obligation for the conservation agent. It's through the CBA.
Okay.
The fancy vest that you see him wearing are on the badge.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Will his reduction in the amount of hours with the furlough affect his operations to ensure that the conservation?
Conservation,
We won't have
like
any
everybody
issues.
else, we'll get it done. And I can tell you quite frankly, I mean, and I'm not saying this is exclusive or to the Department of Economic and Community Development staff, but we get the job done. They're all been aware. I've kept everybody apprised of the different proposals that have been now manifested in this 80-hour furlough. So I've discussed it with all the staff, and everybody is generally amenable to it, given the alternatives, which would be far more dramatic cuts.
All right. If there's no further questions, we're going on to the police budget. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Wilson, for your time this evening. That is page 30, counselors. The police budget is on page 30.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Methuen City Council. Good evening, Mayor. I know I sent you a email. Perhaps some of you didn't get it, so I brought some hard copies to distribute
them.
right again. So Chair Soto, you had asked the question, did we look at how far on a percentage basis our budget was cut from one year to the next? I think you asked for, you were using the variable, your proposed budget versus what it was cut. And I think it's better to look at objective criteria. And when I look at objective criteria, what I want to look at is what was our budget in FY26 versus what is it proposed to be today based on the mayor's proposal. Because, for example, I could have proposed $5 million in additional spending. If that was cut, how do you do an apples to apples comparison across the board? I think it's difficult. So when I look at where our budget was last year, our budget was $15,275,000, and this year the proposed budget is $14,450,000. So that's a 5.4% reduction from last year to this year. And of course, we still have to absorb the cost of living increases that were approved, roughly 3%. So that's what we're up against. But I'm happy to say I think we can meet the mayor's number. Yes.
So in essence, it's 8.4 because we're absorbing the 3%.
Well, I guess you'd expect, all things being equal, typically if 90% of your budget is personnel cost, and there was a 3% cost of living, you may expect your budget to roughly go up by 3%. That said, again, I want to use the apples to apples comparison. So our budget was $15,275,000. It's proposed to be $14,450,000. That's a 5.4% reduction from one year to the next. As I said, I think we can accomplish this. I know I gave you quite a bit of documents, and I know that we're trying to get through a lot tonight, but if it's not too much trouble, I'd like to read a couple of the documents into the record. One of them is our FY27 budget narrative. I'll touch on that because I think it's important to touch on what we do, how we do it, and what the Methuen residents get as a result. The Methuen Police Department's mission is to protect life, property, and preserve public order, and to enhance quality of life for all those who live, work, and visit our city in Methuen. Serving a community of approximately 53,500 residents, the department delivers comprehensive 24/7 public safety services, including emergency response, crime prevention, criminal investigations, traffic safety, and community-based policing. The department is staffed by 102 sworn police officers and 15 professional civilian personnel, including dispatchers. Historically, the Methuen Police handle between 30,000 and 40,000 calls for service annually. While call volume fluctuates modestly from year to year, overall demand remains consistently high, reflecting steady operational needs across emergency, non-emergency, and service-related incidents. Methuen continues to experience relatively low and stable levels of serious violent crime, with rates below the national averages and favorable when compared to similarly sized Massachusetts communities. The majority of the department's workload consists of service-oriented and crisis-related calls, including mental health crises, domestic violence incidents, substance use emergencies, welfare checks, overdoses, and quality of life complaints. These incidents are often complex, time-intensive, and require specialized training, sound judgment, and close coordination with behavioral health providers, hospitals, and community organizations. In addition to traditional law enforcement, the Methuen Police Department plays a vital role in community engagement, prevention, and stabilization efforts. Officers actively partner with schools, senior services, housing providers, healthcare institutions, nonprofits, and neighborhood groups to address the underlying issues that affect public safety. A flagship initiative is the Police-Assisted Therapeutic Help Program that we call PATH, which pairs crisis intervention trained police officers with mental health clinicians to respond to behavioral health crises, divert individuals from unnecessary arrest or emergency room visits, and connect residents to appropriate care. These efforts help reduce harm, build community trust, and improve quality of life across all our neighborhoods. As public safety demands continue to evolve, the department remains committed to professional excellence, accountability, and continuous improvement. This commitment is demonstrated by our full accreditation from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. Strategic investments in training officer wellness, technology, and infrastructure are essential to sustaining a capable and resilient police department. The FY27 budget will enable the Methuen Police Department to meet current service demands, adapt to emerging challenges, and continue to deliver equitable, high-quality public safety services to our community. I listed some of our crime trends, and I'm going to pass over that just for a moment and talk about some of our accomplishments. First, some of our operational accomplishments. I think it gives a window into what we do at the police department day to day and year to year. With regard to staffing, this year we've achieved full staffing in the face of what I view as the challenge of 21st century police departments with respect to recruitment and retention. We successfully hired 10 full-time police officers in 2025, reaching full staffing with all 102 sworn positions filled, ensuring uninterrupted operational capacity. With respect to sworn officer diversity, since October 4th of 2021, the department has made measurable gains in diversity. Previously, 91% of full-time sworn officers were white, 9% were identified as Hispanic or Latino, and 0% were Black or African American. Since then, 32 full-time hires, including 38 who identified as Hispanic or Latino, and 6% that identified as Black or African American, 12% females, and 10 reserve hires, including 40% Hispanic or Latino, 10% Black, and 20% female, demonstrating clear, quantifiable progress towards a more representative workforce. With respect to lateral transfers, we hired one lateral transfer officer in 2025, the 12th such lateral transfer over the past 4 years, resulting in more than $1.2 million in pre-employment cost savings for the city. It costs a lot to train police officers, paying for them to go to the police academy, paying for them to be part of our field training program, paying for all those pre-employment hurdles like physicals and psychologicals and what have you. That costs roughly $100,000 per officer. We've now attracted 12 lateral transfers, making us the envy of the state in that regard. Recruitment and retention for new officers joining the department after completing, one of the things we do is we've hired 4 new police officers who joined the department after completing what we call the hand-for-hand civil service preparatory class, which demonstrates the effectiveness of this pipeline. One of the things we do is we found over the course of the last several years, we're getting fewer and fewer applicants for this position, and fewer are taking and passing the exam. One of the things we've done the last several years is we offered a 4-hour preparatory class. We brought in a subject matter expert, actually a police chief from a neighboring community that comes in. He's a subject matter expert in promotional training and civil service preparatory exams. We've now hired 4 police officers through that pipeline. We're teaching them how to take the test before they even become Methuen police officers. Pre-academy training and mentorship. All 9 of the 2025 recruits successfully passed the entry-level Cooper physical fitness standard with free training and mentorship provided by MPD staff prior to taking the exam. So once again, one of the things we're finding in past years is we go through all these steps, the background checks, the physicals, the psychologicals. We get ready to hire these young people, and within 30 days of going to that police academy, then they have to take the difficult physical fitness exam, the one where they have to run 1.5 miles in roughly 12 or 13 minutes. They have to do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups. Our staff is training with these young people in advance of that, before they're actually Methuen police officers. We've developed a cadet program, and we're waiting for the final approval from the Mass Police Training Committee to build a pipeline for future officers to support our diversity goals. Sure, it wasn't funded this year, it wasn't funded last year, but it's in place for future years when we return to full fiscal stability. Our community policing assignments. Last year, we assigned 2 police officers to the Arlington neighborhood to strengthen local relationships and proactive policing and address quality of life concerns. We're trying to address crime before it happens. We don't simply want to react to it, and that's going to be a theme I'm going to touch on in a moment. Our mental health leadership. We hired, for our PATH team, we hired Supervisor Tom Donovan to lead our mental health co-response and diversion efforts. Our dispatch diversity. Prior to my joining the department, we had 9 dispatchers, none of which spoke Spanish. I've made 4 hires in the last 4 years, all speak Spanish. Operational continuity. We've effectively managed retirements, medical leaves, and military deployments through reserve hiring and the exploration of this new alternative recruitment hiring path that I'll touch on in a moment. We deployed our first K-9 support dog, our K-9 Ollie, to support community engagement and officer wellness initiatives. Whatever you may think of the Methuen Police Department, I think it's fair to say everybody loves Ollie, right? Yeah. With regard to infrastructure and facilities, we've completed a new climate-controlled evidence room and receiving area to protect evidence integrity. We've renovated our police patrol restrooms and added ADA-accessible facilities with showers for the first time in decades. We've updated our roll call room with a kitchenette and additional monitors and improved layout. We hired a project manager to help manage all of our various capital improvement projects. And last year we replaced 6 new patrol vehicles to ensure the reliability of our fleet. We did all that with the support of our mayor and our city council, and most importantly, the taxpayers of the city of Methuen. We're getting better at spending those limited tax dollars, and we're putting those tax dollars to the best use. With respect to technology and data, we fully implemented our new Mark 43 records management system in September of 25, with legacy data migration on track for completion by July of this year. We're just 2 months away from full integration. We deployed our first gunshot detection system across 1 square mile. It successfully alerted officers to a road rage shooting incident where no one called 911. We didn't receive one 911 call for a road rage incident where shots were fired. But this new gunshot detection system detected it, and we were on scene within minutes. We've continued to expand Mayor Beauregard's public camera system. And one of the things that I failed to mention yesterday when we talked about the aggressive driving and the accident and the gun that was recovered, the way that we were able to identify the rider and the passenger was through Mayor Beauregard's public camera system that caught these 2 riders on that vehicle just moments previous to the accident. We purchased and we're currently installing our first 22 license plate reader cameras to enhance crime prevention and our investigative capabilities. That's one of the ways we're going to combat aggressive driving. We've maintained 2 active drones, and we're exploring the purchase of an autonomous drone that we can launch from our dispatch area. And we recently deployed Axon body-worn cameras to every police officer. Of course, this has been in place for many years, but this year the technology has evolved, and now it includes a real-time translation capability which supports more than 50 languages. This improves communication during incidents involving non-English speaking residents and strengthens the department's ability to serve Methuen's increasingly diverse community. They simply can press a button, it'll listen, and then translate for the officer and vice versa. With respect to accreditation, I know you know this, but I say it again for those watching from home. We completed the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission re-accreditation assessment in December of last year, and we were recently notified that we did in fact achieve full re-accreditation. The mayor and I and the recently minted Lieutenant Muscus will receive that award next month. We're proud of what we continue to achieve to reach the highest levels in law enforcement. With respect to our PATH program, we launched a crisis intervention team, our crisis intervention team training in April of 24, and our co-response team in December of 25. We hired a second clinician and a peer support staff. We handled more than 1,000 referrals to the co-response program since April of 24. We achieved 130 successful diversions from emergency rooms, arrests, or other high-cost interventions in 2025. An estimated cost avoidance from the criminal justice system and emergency room visits of more than $721,000. We expanded our partnerships with local mental health providers and substance use providers, veterans outreach and the CARES program, and senior centers. We conducted weekly outreach at the Methuen Library, the Senior Center, and the Community Resource Center at 1 Broadway. With respect to community engagement and community policing, we participated in 66 formal community events, including Coffee with the Cop, National Night Out, youth programs, senior initiatives, and seasonal festivals. We provided fraud prevention presentations, car seat safety clinics, and public safety education at schools and community sites. We maintained strong neighborhood presence at the Arlington neighborhood, the Coolidge neighborhood, and other areas while expanding our partnerships with YMCA, Prospera, Methuen Library, Methuen Senior Center, and Man Inc. And just a few months ago, we graduated 18 city residents from the Methuen Police Department's second annual Citizens Police Academy. With respect to officer wellness and peer support, we launched our first voluntary cardiometabolic preemptive medical screening program that's currently underway. This 3-year initiative will provide comprehensive preventative health screenings to 1/3 of the department each year on a rolling 3-year schedule. Year 1 is underway now. It's fully funded using federal seizure dollars, meaning we're using dollars seized from drug dealers to pay for this very valuable program and avoiding tax dollars as a result. We've implemented a new officer wellness policy, and I want to say that I'm indebted and grateful to Mayor Beauregard because he was fully behind this proposal from the beginning. Of course, both unions have wanted this for some time, and we now have it in place. It allows for the opportunity to meet confidentially with a licensed mental health provider up to 4 times per year, once per quarter, at no cost to the police officer. This initiative supports proactive mental health maintenance and reduces barriers to care. We trained 11 certified peer support members in critical incident stress management. That number is off the charts. You don't see that in any other department. You might see 1 or 2. You don't see 11. We secured $101,000 in federal funds and another $96,000 from the Massachusetts Critical Incident Stress Management grant funding to expand training and expand regional collaboration. We provided confidential check-ins, critical incident debriefings, and off-site clinical support to our police officers to reduce burnout and support our members. We support those who support us, and we've actively participated in the Greater Lowell Emergency Services Critical Incident Management Team. Finally, with respect to leadership and professional development, 9 officers completed advanced training, leadership training through the FBI Leader Program, the Senior Management Institute for Police, and the Leaders Helping Leaders Network. We completed 4 promotions last year in accordance with department policies and processes. Again, we've never skipped anyone. We've gone straight down that list. We've agreed on a process, we've stuck to it, and we haven't played games with it. The mayor, the city council, and your police chief have always honored that list and what it has produced. We've continued a mentorship and supervisory shadowing program to prepare police officers for future leadership roles. We've conducted monthly dispatch audits with full compliance. You may not know that we do this, but we don't often get these. In my history, I've seen sometimes where people call and they feel like they were not treated fairly by the person answering the phone. Well, we do preemptive screening. We audit those calls each month. We have a supervisor listen in to dozens, scores of calls to see, are they measuring up to our standards, and should we be offering suggestions for improvement? We do that every month. And we've delivered law enforcement rapid response training, the so-called ALERT acronym, with rescue task force scenarios in coordination with our wonderful Methuen Fire Department. We're preparing for the worst days in hopes that they never come. Here you have a copy of the department's organizational chart as it stands today. Obviously, there'd be a couple changes if this budget was to be adopted. I'm just going to close, and this is a short letter that I sent you today, and I think it kind of puts in perspective my feelings about this whole process. It's a letter that I sent to the council today. Dear Chairperson Soto and esteemed members of the Methuen City Council, first I want to publicly thank Mayor Beauregard for his tremendous leadership and the significant hard work he has invested in this budget. His proposal fully protects every sworn police officer and the vast majority of our civilian staff. I appreciate his commitment to public safety and fiscal responsibility. I stand with him, and I support this overall budget. And I mean that, Mayor. I've seen you move heaven and earth from where we started to where we are now. Nobody is more grateful to you than I am. Thank you, sir. That said, there is one critical civilian position that I respectfully ask the council and Mayor Beauregard to reconsider restoring, and that is the Director of Crime Analysis and Strategic Planning, Dawn Reby. And Dawn Reby is here with me tonight. Dawn is a nationally and internationally recognized subject matter expert in public safety analytics and law enforcement leadership. With over 27 years of experience, she is the founder of Excellence in Analytics, a highly sought-after keynote speaker, course developer, instructor, and coach. She partnered with the International Association of Police Chiefs, the Bureau of Justice Administration, and other major organizations delivering training and consulting across the country and across the world. She's the author of 2 best-selling books and received the prestigious 2021 Brian Hill Memorial Scholarship Award for her national and international contributions. This role serves as the police department's centralized director-level infrastructure for crime analysis, strategic planning, and organizational accountability and data systems development. It integrates intelligence, operations, policy, grant support, and performance management into one unified system that drives proactive policing and smart decision-making. Dawn functions as my right arm. Having already lost my left arm with the non-funding of the department's deputy chief role, she represents the very core of my management style. She is the position, I should say the person, I simply cannot do without. Dawn has delivered exceptional results for the city of Methuen, including founding our PATH program, securing nearly $1 million in grant funding, and earning us national recognition from the Department of Justice, transforming our Mark 43 records management system, designing our CompStat system, designing our 5-year strategic plan, which is currently underway and in process, with the last part of that having a discussion with each of you on the council and, of course, our mayor. We've already done our due diligence with respect to that, and we're ready to publish, but we need to complete that final and most important step. With Dawn in this role, we're ready to take the next critical steps. Eventually, expanding PATH into a citywide social harm and cost avoidance analytics platform, building real-time enterprise intelligence dashboards and public transparency portals in our Mark 43 platform, evolving CompStat into a continuous real-time accountability system, advancing predictive crime intelligence and regional integration, and fully implementing a domestic violence risk reduction initiative, and expanding on our 7 pillars of our 360-degree wellness platform. Without her, this hard-won progress would largely stall. We would lose the only person with the institutional knowledge, technical architecture, and national expertise needed to advance these critical systems. Replacing this level of specialized talent would be extremely difficult and costly, setting us back years in terms of data-driven policing. Compassion to both Mayor Beauregard and me means prioritizing people over positions and supporting dedicated professionals who have committed their careers to our shared mission. Dawn has done exactly that. To restore this position in a completely cost-neutral way with zero net increase to the city's overall budget, I am proposing the following detailed, targeted reductions entirely within the police department's budget. I'm not asking this council or our mayor for one more dollar. I'm suggesting that we take the PATH program line item that was funded in the mayor's proposal at $105,000 and reduce it to $45,000, saving $60,000. This meets only the required FY27 grant match. We must make a grant match. We have $92,000 to roll over from FY26. Taken together, that's $137,000, more than enough to fully fund and keep in place a version of our PATH team with our lead clinician, Tom Donovan, and continue our partnership with Frontline Services. We are simply right-sizing as the original grant winds down. With respect to cardiometabolic testing, nobody has advocated for that more passionately than I. I'm suggesting now that we cut the entire $32,000 that would have funded round two, and instead allow me to use the federal seizure account, money seized from drug deals instead of tax dollars. That would save another $32,000, leaving this program continuous and unchanged. With respect to our fitness incentive line item, I'm suggesting that we reduce that from $100,000 to $88,800. How, you say? I know we can save $11,200 because only 74 police officers signed up for the test. And if every one of them were to pass it, our exposure would be $88,800. There's at least $11,000 in savings there. And finally, I'm asking you to cut our professional services line item, reducing it by $10,600. This covers non-essential, non-reoccurring FY26 expenses. Last year, we spent $6,000 on a couple of door replacements that we had to execute in order to achieve a reaccreditation. That's a completed project. We spent $8,000 on academy tuition. I don't envision sending anyone to the academy in FY27. Instead, we'll use our newly created civil service alternative hiring pathway that allows us to attract more cadets. More transfers from other departments. So I'll close with this. These adjustments total more than $114,000, fully covering Director Reeby's salary with zero net impact on the city's budget and no sworn officer reductions. I respectfully ask the City Council to propose and adopt these specific cuts, and I ask Mayor Beauregard to support restoring Dawn Reeby's position so we can keep this nationally recognized expertise working for the people of Methuen. Thank you for your time and consideration. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief,
Yes.
for that elaborate presentation. I am going to, if you can humor me for 1 minute, I think if they want to ask questions on what you just did and said, and then you can dive right into the budget, that way we're targeting.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The floor is yours, councilors. Who has any questions? Councilor DeZaglio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few items, I saw a lot of reductions here that I'm concerned about, and one of the is right off the bat is SWAT and RRT. So again, I'm trying to understand your budget. So if something needs SWAT to come, by reducing this line item, do you have to, what happens?
So we're part of a regional consortium called NEMLAC, there's way too many acronyms in my profession, but I think I have this one, Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. So it's a consortium of 61 communities, and we all agree to send a 10% of our department to train with other communities in case there is an emergency in one of those 61 communities, so we can send all those collective resources to cities that are in need. We've used this a number of times over the past few years in Methuen. By virtue of doing this, you don't have to have a local SWAT team. Years ago, many local departments, including Lawrence. I was a part of a local SWAT team many years ago. Now we do that by way of this local consortium, and we take the best and brightest from every department, the people that are in the best shape, the most committed to this type of policing, and we have them train with their peers from other departments so that they're ready and available in the event that we have a crisis here. Now you're asking how we can cut. We've been allowing our officers to participate in a lot of, I would say, discretionary type of events, not necessarily mandatory, so we can cut to only the mandatory training events. And one of the things that they've done in years past, and they actually prefer, sometimes when they do extra work, they actually prefer to get comp time in lieu of overtime. I often don't allow it, but if there was something that, if we're in a tight situation like that, I could allow them to get comp time if needed. They prefer that anyway.
So out of your officers, I saw that overtime was cut dramatically. I don't know how many officers you have right now that are currently injured or off. That overtime is now essential. With the overtime cut, how does that put a strain on your department?
Sure, and I fully adopt and embrace the mayor's suggestion. I think it's something we should meet weekly on. But when I say that I can function with respect to this budget, I'm committed to it, and I know that I can achieve that number, and that's going to be tough. A lot of these line items are going to be really tough. We're operating on the thinnest of margins because we're prioritizing people over positions and other matters. So how are we going to do it? We're going to make sure that the patrol division, where most of the overtime is born, is fully funded, is fully staffed. So we're going to have to look at rolling more and more people into patrol from other specialized units. I am happy to say that we have a couple of officers that were on long-time deployment that we anticipate returning in September or October of this year. We have 6 recruits that are in the academy now, 1 that graduates in June, 5 that graduate in October. Those are boots on the ground help in FY27. We have a lot of things cutting in our direction, and the mayor and our HR director are doing their best to manage a couple of long-term ILD situations that we're hoping to get some closure on very soon.
Well, since we went into the budget, because I wanted questions on the first part, we'll leave that to the end because I have a few questions on your first presentation. I think Councilor Marsan, yeah, we're on the budget right now, so we'll let him explain, but I do have a question since you just asked, Councilor DeZoglio just asked a question on overtime. Yep. So I'm going to piggyback on that if that's okay with you. So the furloughs are separate than the overtime cut.
100% correct.
Okay. So explain to me, if you have $2 million, I mean, this is maybe a mayor, CAFO, chief conversation. You have $2 million, $3 million in furlough for your department. Because I'm trying to wrap the one department, 2 departments actually 3, DPW, fire, and police, is where I'm trying to figure out how the furloughs are really going to work.
I think the quantifiable number is 3.8% that the mayor and the CAFO capture back in the budget by way of the furloughs. And so how would that work for practically?
Yeah, so because some of your positions have to be covered with overtime.
Well, you would think that, but there's other things that we can do. So what I would say, how we'll manage that at the police department, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I think the mayor did the right thing by writing this in here, but I suspect that there are still negotiations that have to happen with the various unions. So I think that that'll happen at some point. But let's just assume that the unions fully adopt this proposal, because the alternative, I suspect, would be layoffs, and I think that's something that they want to avoid as much as the mayor wants to avoid, as much as this council wants to avoid, and most importantly, that I want to avoid. So let's assume that there will be furloughs.
Can you hold one second? When you say assume, because we're tentatively voting on this Thursday and Tuesday. So you're saying this budget gets voted and passed, let's say, for whatever reason. I mean, it passes. You're still saying in the backdrop, you're still negotiating these furloughs with the unions, even though, or this, because my understanding is, shouldn't there be an agreement now?
So we'll be able to impact bargain with the unions once the budget's adopted.
Okay.
So you were asking practically how this will be implemented while avoiding overtime because it wouldn't make a lot of sense to give somebody the day off and then pay somebody time and a half to backfill, right?
Thank you.
So the way we would do that is, thankfully, the department is staffed in such a way that we have uniformed police officers in our operational side, and we have officers that perform administrative tasks in the administrative bureau side. So what we would do is we'd manage that by simply saying, if a uniformed officer needed to be off on a furlough on Monday, I would take somebody on the admin side and say, you need to put on a uniform today, you need to fill in over there. So I think of all the departments, I think that this could be managed best in the police department, to be frank.
I'm actually more confused now because I thought, like, if I'm a lieutenant and I'm working, I had to cover for someone, I get paid lieutenant rates, right?
So I would
I can choose to cover as a lieutenant. Like, that's still a.
So I think what you're talking about is if a typical Saturday shift where a lieutenant would be, well, actually lieutenants work Monday through Friday. So let's just say there were 2 sergeants scheduled to work on a Saturday and one took the day off. And because we always have a 2-person minimum, yes, we'd have to hire overtime. So a sergeant from some other area of the department would have to volunteer for the overtime, come in and get paid time and a half. In this situation, a furlough type of situation, I would simply take somebody on their regular Monday through Friday schedule and say, today, put on a uniform and work on the patrol side. They wouldn't get any additional remuneration for that. It's not easy to do because I'll be honest, I think everybody performs a 40-hour role. So it's a difficult thing to do because their responsibilities kind of add up. But I will say that is far more preferable than the alternative, which is layoffs and demotions. And again, I went through this years ago in 2010. I saw the worst of it during my time in the city of Lawrence. I saw 30 of my colleagues get laid off, 12 get demoted. I get demoted 2 ranks myself. I wish somebody had offered us alternatives at the time. So I praise the mayor and this council for considering other proposals other than layoffs and demotions. I think that's a wonderful starting point.
Okay, so I guess, and maybe this is to you, Mr. Mayor, the thought of voluntary furloughs for higher ranking, like if you're making the top tier dollar in these positions, you're not struggling, right? You're bringing in almost 200, 300K a year. So I'm thinking if that's me, I'd be like, yeah, give me the summer off, pay me $1, don't affect my, my time. And it's up, and I can take the whole summer and travel the world with my family. That would be me. That's not an option here either. Like, that's not something that you floated.
So the way that the furloughs would be implemented is they would impact literally every single city-side employee, including myself. I would be furloughed, although I can't stop working. I'm working all the time. So this is something that would impact from me as the mayor all the way on down. And that's simply the way this is structured. I think that, if there are potentially opportunities for the unions to agree to perhaps other ways to reach the number that we need them to reach, those can be conversations that we have with them. However, this is a part of the process, unfortunately, about balancing the budget, but doing so in a way where we're trying to minimize layoffs as much as we can, because the chief had shared with me the story of what happened with him and how devastating that is for especially these superior officers who work so hard to get to where they had been and all of a sudden find themselves in a position where they're sliding right back down the ladder when there are alternatives available. And so this is my effort to try to pursue those alternatives so that we don't have other more consequential problems arise.
Okay, all right. We'll go back to the budget.
Yes.
Thank you. You want to go?
Oh, I was just going to close and kind of go off script a little. I mean, obviously, again, I want to praise the mayor for coming so far and protecting, most importantly, all the sworn police officers. I think that was a critical priority for the mayor and for me, and I'm grateful that he's done that. I'm grateful that we're not contemplating demoting any superior officers, but there are 2 huge losses in my budget, massive. One is the loss of the deputy police chief's role. I will say that I'm in a different place now than I was 4.5 years ago. If you cut that role in my first or second or even my third year, I might not be able to function without it. I'm at a place that I've been around. I've learned the Methuen way. I know how things operate here in Methuen, and I think that I can function this year without it. I don't think it's a long-term, the way we want to go long-term. Before I started with the department, the command level of the department consisted of a police chief and 5 captains. We've reorganized the department in your vision, your predecessor's vision. You may recall back in 2022, we reorganized the whole department, and that had to be adopted by the Methuen City Council. That document is in your email right here, right? Back then, I proposed changing from that model to a model that would consist of 4 people in that command level: a police chief, a deputy police chief, and 2 captains under 2 bureaus. Some would say we don't need a deputy police chief and have 3 captains. To be frank, I think that's how the Superior Officers Union would like it to be now. I would say whoever my successor is, whenever I may leave this department, I think you have to take a good look at restoring one of those positions, because I think that the police chief would find themselves in a very difficult position moving forward without either that 3rd captain or that deputy police chief.
So, and maybe this is to the mayor. So maybe leaving we have to fund till this gentleman is out of that position, correct? The deputy?
That's correct. And that's a common misconception about the budget. I'll defer to the solicitor, but we're not required to leave $1 in to maintain something. Hypothetically, if we're in a better fiscal position in fiscal year 28, we're able to achieve savings in the context of health insurance, special ed, all these different areas that we're talking about trying to adjust in the city, then, as the needs arise, perhaps to bring back the deputy and what have you down the road, that's something that we can simply build back into the budget document. So you
don't have to leave $1 item in there. Okay, that's good to understand.
And the same is true. We're probably gonna have conversations tomorrow about DPW, several adjustments there. No need to do that.
Right, that's good.
And the other thing,
now the room on the street is your leaving, so that's where I'm cautious to, in my opinion, to get rid of that position. Well, you don't. Sure. Obviously, I'm not asking you to answer that question. With all due respect, Chief, sure. I just want you to know.
No, respectfully, before I make any formal announcement, I'd like to have a private conversation, obviously, with the mayor, and frankly, each one of you, before I determine what my future with the department is. But I just want to also add that I want to take you back to, some of you may remember my interview in 2021, where I sat roughly over here, and I couldn't hear anything back then either, but I did my best. But one of the things I touched on when I was asked the question, what is one of the first things you want to do when you become, if you were to become our police chief? They asked me, what is one of the critical needs of the Methuen Police Department? And I identified almost from the outset, my highest priority was to hire a director of crime analysis. I recognized that was a huge deficiency in a department that serves more than 50,000 residents, that consists of 100 police officers, that deals with 40,000 calls for service. I identified then during that interview, and look at this document when you have a chance on page 13. It was one of the first recommendations I made. Your predecessors on this city council, and of course, Mayor Beauregard was one of those members of the council that I'll always be indebted to for the rest of my life for giving me this wonderful opportunity. But I want to remind everyone in this room that identified then that this is a critical need for the police department. I used this analogy then, and I'll use it now. Without somebody analyzing the data, scrutinizing the data, determining what happened and where we need to go, we're essentially a rudderless ship in a vast ocean, treading water aimlessly. We don't know where we're going. I don't want to go back to a model where the 911 phone rings and we simply react to crime. We need somebody with the national recognition and expertise that Don Reby has that can go into that data and give us fully informed decision where we need to deploy our resources. Why spend $15 million on a police budget and waste those dollars needlessly? Don Reby shows us where we need to be. She anticipates where crime is going to happen next and allows us to address it from a preventative standpoint. When I say she is my right arm, I mean it. I simply cannot do this job without somebody like Don Reby. And I would say to you, I don't think anyone can do the job effectively without somebody like Don Reby by their sides.
Since you elaborated on that, I'd like to ask the mayor, and then this isn't to put you on the spot, this is because I know I get accused of that a lot, but with all due respect. Would you eliminated this position to save some of the other officers? And that's where my head's going, to save some jobs on the lower, because I'm trying to figure out the gist of.
Yeah, so my objective with producing this budget, the fire department budget, et cetera, was to ensure that we didn't have any reductions in namely two lines, the patrol officer line and the firefighters line. Well, first of all, I know that the chief has shared his thoughts, and just to kind of chime in, first of all, I want to thank him for his partnership, his professionalism, his continued leadership of the department during what amounts to an extraordinarily difficult fiscal year. I also appreciate his advocacy for the members of his team, right? Frankly, I would expect every department head to advocate strongly for valued employees and programs. That's something that I think is a good thing. The issue is that we have, in terms of producing the budget, have had to make very painful decisions across every department in the city. As we'll talk about later, I'm losing quite literally 25% of my own staff as part of this. And these painful decisions include departments like the PD, et cetera, positions that I know the chief and so many others we value greatly. And so this isn't easy. This is not something that I take lightly. But the challenge before all of us, I think, is not determining whether a position or a program has value. We know that they do, right? The challenge is determining what the city can sustainably and responsibly maintain in a financial sense, not just in fiscal year 27, but beyond as well. And so that's at the top of my mind, as I referenced earlier. We're trying to avoid an override. We're trying to avoid the loss of core frontline public safety staffing. So I want to mention that the police budget that's in front of you in your binder, it was submitted by me with input from the chief, with input from the Superior Officers Union, with input from the Patrol Officers Union, input provided as recently as Friday. And ultimately, I think what we're seeing tonight is that there are multiple options in front of us, right? When I think of PATH, this is a program that has brought policing in our city, public safety generally, along by way of so much progress since its inception. The challenge that we have, for instance, with PATH is that it had been initially funded exclusively by grant money. And we've lost virtually all of that grant funding, with the last of it about to cycle out in the coming months. And so the question that I've had, and something that I've tried to work with the chief on, is how can we maintain those services that we provide, minimal, hopefully, disruption to the actual services, but do so in a way that we're able to maintain the scale of the program in a sustainable way. And that is the challenge without grant funding. So, at this point, what we're looking at is, there was a reference, I think, to making an additional $60,000 cut, Chief, relative to saving the crime analysis position, make another $60,000 cut, which, that's certainly within the council's purview to do. But my concern with that, just as we walk through all the different options that we're looking at here, is that would leave us with one person facilitating the entirety of the PATH program. And so something that I have asked our team to look at over the course of the past few months is perhaps other ways that we can maintain those services, but do it perhaps in a more efficient, more predictable, cost-effective manner while maintaining that level of service that we're hoping to provide. And for instance, we found that Beth Israel Leahy Health, they offer an esophageal diversion program that provides very similar services to PATH. The cost of that program would be roughly $138,000. We would be looking at to maintain PATH at its full operating status, going back to when we had the grant money. It would cost us slightly over $500,000 to maintain all of those PATH functions, all the clinician functions and the like. And so, this is something that we found as, I think, a sustainable alternative, predictable in terms of what the cost is, able to maintain those services. Something that I'm a little concerned about is regarding the proposed reduction in the cardiometabolic testing in the budget, using federal seizure money to fund that. Last time we checked, there's roughly $22,000 left in that account right now. So the cost of the cardiometabolic testing, $32,000. I'm not sure that there's adequate funding in the federal seizure account to cover that. But overall, I understand where the chief is coming from. I appreciate the passion with which he's proposing the restoration of, for instance, the position that we're talking about. But I'm just trying to illustrate for you as well all the other considerations that are out there trying to maintain a level of balance while preserving the patrol officer line item, which is of utmost importance.
I appreciate that. I'm going to go over to the council, but I asked that question because you are aware we can't add to this budget. It is what the mayor brings.
Yeah, I'm fully aware.
And I understand that you just said, Mayor, you gave them their budget, correct? And then, so I just wanted to make sure that that it has to come from the mayor.
I feel like the times that the mayor has been very busy, as I think we all well know, the last several weeks. I think every time I have an opportunity to sit with the mayor and discuss things, we kind of iron out our differences and we get to a mutual place of satisfaction. And I really think that the sand ran through the hourglass on this last one. I think that proposal that the mayor just suggested about working with that other behavioral health partner is something that we've already scrutinized and we've determined, and I have the backup in my hand to show you that we'll get less than it's going to cost more. And I would prefer to spend just the $45,000 this year, which is the requirement under the match required in that grant, and keep in place the most significant portion or part of our program, which is our lead clinician, an embedded lead clinician, boots on the ground every single day in the city of Methuen, versus rotating in a number of different providers who are not committed to our mission. I think that's the way forward. I think, ironically, one thing I should mention is that Director Eby and myself are poised to give a presentation to the Department of Justice on Thursday about our program being one of the 8 programs nationwide being recognized for our contributions to this co-response model, the co-response model that also has the follow-up provision in it. We can still maintain a version of that this year and be cost-effective in that manner. And the other part of this too is, I'd like to keep the person that founded and created the program, the subject matter expert that created it. I'd like her to remain in our employ. She's the person best suited to find additional funding and provide whatever the next version of this program is moving forward, with the understanding that we need to do everything in our power to reduce the burden on the taxpayer. I don't like the idea of paying $60,000 more and getting less as a result. I don't think it's productive for me to go into all the reasons why, but I'm prepared to do that if you'd like.
Councilor Drew, I believe you had a question.
Yeah. I guess we're kind of convoluted now amongst the whole thing. I just had a couple of questions, just clarifications on things. The matron monitor, what is that?
Was it cell monitor?
No, it says matron monitor.
Yeah, so matron is a old term to define they used to have females, and that was the appropriate term used many, many years ago, and it carried over. Essentially, it's a cell monitor. It could be a male or a female, a civilian that comes in. When we have somebody in custody and they're going to remain in custody overnight based on the severity of the crime until we can transport them to court to be arraigned, they have to be monitored, and we bring in a trained civilian to essentially sit there and babysit them to make sure that something tragic doesn't happen in one of our jail cells.
Okay. Perfect. Next, technology compensation. What is that?
That's a stipend paid to our dispatchers. We have 9 dispatchers, and we have another member of that unit, our traffic, a civilian traffic control officer, the gentleman that you see writing the parking tickets. They get an annual $1,000 stipend for all the various technology that we continue to implement in the city. So now it's kind of open-ended, but every year we're putting another requirement on these people in terms of what they need to do in that back room. We always have 2 dispatchers working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the back room. They're responsible for monitoring what's going on the street, monitoring the radio, answering all the 911 calls, and now there's all kinds of other various systems that they have to learn on how to be fluent in. So, for example, the public camera system. Somebody needs to know how to manipulate, move those, and record what's going on out there. Somebody needs to know how to use the license plate reader system in the back room. There's a number of various technologies that we've kind of added on to them as additional responsibilities over the years. So I think in this it could have been a few years back or within the last 2 years that we implemented a technology stipend to compensate for that additional burden.
That's driven by the CBA, for the dispatchers.
It's a contractual obligation. You already touched on fitness. Vehicle maintenance. I'm concerned about this one. Looks like you cut about $3,000 down to $100,000. But if I look at what to date had been spent on that, I believe we were significantly over that. Just give me 1 second to find that.
Madam Council, do you have that number for the counselor?
As far as we were over for prior years?
No, vehicle maintenance, I mean, to date, we've spent $125,000 on vehicle maintenance. We're line iteming it at $100,000. I mean, just going off what we did this year, we're seeing a negative impact to what the budget is, so of $25,000.
Well, I will say year after year, we continue to get ourselves in a better place with respect to our fleet. We're fortunate in the regard that every year we've gotten somewhere between $300,000 and $450,000 to buy new police vehicles. And as we continue to modernize our fleet, we have less and less need for vehicle repairs.
Okay. Then into the tactical and med material and supplies, we cut that $81,000.
I think we went through one of the things we try to do is we try to build up our inventory so that we can prepare for lean times. Okay. Well, this is one of those lean times, and we've looked at where we are, and we think we can get through this year.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because it's significantly different than what this year's expenditures
were. Yeah, it sure is. And this, I think you're going to find a lot of that across this budget. Like we went through it with a fine-tooth comb and tried to determine just how far we can cut to protect good people.
Okay. And to this matter, to Dawn, the position, Mr. Mayor, I mean, it sounds like you've done some significant work trying to find everything you can, because it is a big loss to you if you do lose this. And I think you're absolutely right that we don't want to just be kind of shooting in the dark, right? And,
sure.
And that's kind of what we're doing if we don't have a plan. And that's what this position kind of seems like to me. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, I think to be fair, and I know that the council can only cut. So I'm asking for, this is a Hail Mary pass, a leap and a prayer. I'm asking you to make these cuts. Trust that as your subject matter expert, that I'm giving you the best advice on how to run the Methuen Police Department. And then I'll cross my fingers and hope and pray that the mayor sees fit to restore this position, because I think it's instrumental and critical to the successful running of the police department, whether I'm remain your police chief or someone else does. Again, if you look at the sequence of events in terms of how we built this police department, when we had 80 police officers when we started, now keep in mind we have 102. I was saying back then, if our budget is $11 or $12 million, the first person we need to hire is someone like Director Reby to make sure that we spend that $10 or $11 million appropriately before we start building out the department. And we did just that. We recognized that that was the critical role we needed. Then we sequenced the building of the police department, added 10, added 8, added 2, added another 2 with opioid funds to get up to 102. We first determined we need to spend our limited dollars effectively and appropriately, and then we added to police staffing. We are so close. The mayor and I have come so far. We're just one position apart, and I think it's a critical role, and I'm offering a level-funded opportunity to make that change, telling you that I can do without these other dollars and manage these other programs effectively.
So, Chief, I completely agree with how you structured it, you figured it out. At the end of the day, this is the mayor's budget. If we cut these, they're gone.
Yep.
If the mayor reallocates, so in reality, it's on him to reallocate this funding and redraft this. So if this is how you feel, you're the subject matter expert, I would fault to your expertise. If the mayor doesn't see it fit to do that, I mean, I don't think it's on this council to,
I'd ask you to
we're
make
in
the
your
cut.
support because you're the person out there dealing with it. And I would say, however this plays out, I support your decisions on how you plan to run your department.
Thank you, Councilor. That means the world to me. And again, I'd ask you to take that leap of faith, and I hope and pray that the mayor restores this critical position. And if he chooses not to, maybe save another teacher.
Counselor Marcian.
The only question, we talked about it already, is the overtime. So I'm concerned about that to make sure that we staff it. I know we talked about it in depth already, but that's the one big area that I see because we cut it in half. And in years past, we've always had a huge number there. We always complained about how much it was. Now this year we cut it in half. So it's a good thing, but I'm hoping we can still, maintain the service we need. And he's saying he can. I get it. It's just, I hope it works. I just hope it works out. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I kind of did the opposite, so now I'm going to talk about Director Reby. I've known the chief for 6 years from the school side. I've always trusted what amazing things he's done for us on the school side when I was on the school committee. My first question real quick is, according to you, she is a revenue generated position, correct, with grants, all those expertise?
Well, it has certainly brought in revenue in the past, and I expect it'll bring in revenue in the future, sure.
So that's one thing I'm looking at this position, as we need revenue. Methuen, as the former councilor DeZoga sat here last year and said, Methuen has no problem with spending, but it's more of revenue generating. And with Director Reby, she is a valuable resource in the future for these positions, for the police department to generate as much revenue as possible. Also, with that being said, I trust the chief with his cuts, what he is asking to fulfill this position. I trust him. I've been with him for 6 years. I know he would not put his department at risk. And the fact that he's been up here standing up for his officers, I commend him as chief of police. So you will have my support on that, because we are taking away your left arm. I'm not going to be the one that takes away your right.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that. And your focus was on additional revenue, and like I said, I think that Director Reby has a history of bringing in additional revenue. But I'd urge you to focus on her primary role, which is to make sure that we spend the dollars you allocate to us properly in the first place. If you're going to give us roughly $14.4 million, Director Reby is going to make sure that we spend it in the right place.
Any further questions or comments? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
All
I appreciate
right.
you all.
It is, okay. Next is the Fire Department, page 32, counselors. We're ready for you.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So fire department, I don't have an elaborate presentation to give. No offense, Chief. Our budget's pretty straightforward. Our mission of our department is to protect the life and property of the citizens and the travelers through the city of Methuen. I think we do a damn good job. So getting into our budget, 95% of our budget is in personal services, with only 5% in other expenses. So obviously, one of the big ticket items is always overtime. Contractual obligation to staff the trucks with a lieutenant and 2 firefighters. So if anyone is out, we have to cover those shifts with overtime, and that's really one of the big personal service costs that we have. As far as other expenses, they're pretty straightforward. I would say we looked for some increases along the way in certain things that are unfunded mandates that had to go up. But given the tough times, we're going to be able to squeeze through with what we were allotted with what the mayor proposed. One big loss that we have is one of the aides that I have that is in charge of the ambulance revenue, as far as making sure that things are sent off for billing correctly. So it's going to be a tough task to fill that role. We're going to do our best. I'm hopeful that maybe we get some money that comes in to save that. Getting into some of the budget items that we look for increases, or I should say, I don't know, what do you want me to call this? Sorry. Looking at some of the expenses, I would say 23% of our budget goes into stations as far as utilities and station repairs. We've pretty much cut down to where we could possibly get to. What we have is literally bare bones as far as our cuts go. The big one, like I said, was overtime, and it's one of those things with this past year we were faced with quite a few long-term injuries. We had a couple military deployments that we're required to cover, so that really kind of put a dent into our overtime.
Counselors, do you have questions for the chief? I do, but I want to, do you have any questions? Same, and again, educate me on the furlough/overtime at the fire department, how that's going to affect your department. And then, because I assume firefighters don't have detail, at least police have detail. So I'm just...
We don't. It's, as far as the furloughs go, I think that's going to have to be negotiated with the union and the mayor. And then once we determine what the end result is, I'm going to do my best to manage the budget as best as I possibly can.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just to add
I'm
in just some additional insight regarding overtime. So this is yet another budget, of course, like every department, but especially fire. Try to work closely with the chief on crafting what you have in front of you. And one of the questions that I had regarding overtime was how can we limit that, tighten it up to the maximum extent where we're not needing to take an apparatus offline during the fiscal year? Like what's the bare minimum that we need to be able to function in terms of overtime without taking a truck out, without taking anything offline? And so this is reflective of what we would need, slightly above what we would need to maintain those full services. Now, granted, the expectation is that it could run a little tight, so that's why we would need strict controls on it. This is going to require, again, weekly check-ins. I know the chief receives a a weekly report on this along with HR, and we're going to have to really keep our eye on it. But the goal here was to establish a number where we wouldn't be in the position that other cities are in. We're having to take apparatuses offline.
But there was a layoff, or there were layoffs at the fire department. I received an email.
There was one administrator.
I was an administrator. I thought I was a EMT person.
No.
No? Okay. I appreciate that clarification. Counselor DeZoglio, and then I'll go to you, Counselor Drew, I'm sorry.
So to look at that administrative aid, you said, Chief, that she runs all the ambulance billing, etc.
Yep, she handles all the ambulance billing.
And so if she's gone, who is going to be managing that?
It's probably going to be a shared task amongst a couple people.
And from my understanding, she's been in the city for 36 years. And how long has she worked at the fire station?
33 years.
Just to chime in, that's a function that we outsource. And the CAFO can elaborate.
The ambulance process, we have an outside vendor that does the billing and like a big piece of it. So it's not the full process that would be not already covered. There's the internal piece that needs to be covered. But I just wanted to be clear that it's not the entire process.
No.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chief, go.
No, the internal piece is she reviews all the reports, make sure that they're factually correct as far as all the data matches up, because insurance companies don't want to pay. So she maintains all the ambulance data, the reports, to make sure they're accurate, the information is there before she sends it off to the billing company. Because if anything is not there, then they kick it back to us or they don't pay.
So for her experience, because she's been at the fire station for a very long time, you'd say maybe 20 years over doing that job?
I would say so.
So she is an expert in that type of billing, understanding, making sure we generate revenue from the ambulance fees. And also, from my understanding, what is having trouble with this, she's been in the city for 36 years, close to retirement, and and again, tough decisions. But at the same time, I look at this as she's close to retirement, and losing these certain amount of years could be detrimental to her retirement. That's why I'm having trouble with it. And I'm just saying, because a lot of these items, and I'm not trying to take away from the fire department, absolutely not. But it's just very hard that with her expertise that we're going to just cut it. So that's where I'm at with that.
Again, I don't want to sound, what's the word I'm looking for? Is that something AI can handle?
Possibly.
Because it's accurate. I mean,
there's quite
again,
a few
I'm not,
functions that AI could probably help.
because it's accuracy, and again, Counselor, not in this day and age. I just wanted to throw that out there just for the back. Counselor Drew, if you're all done, Counselor?
I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess this question is to the mayor and to the chief in conjunction. Your revenue assumptions are looking at roughly 200 lift help in falls. So what I'm hearing is your revenue assumption is you're going to tax onto a position that we are laying off is gone now. We're taxing that onto it of a $100,000 potential revenue source that we're not going to have anybody there to facilitate. What is the plan to make sure that that implementation happens?
So the position that we're talking about here is not, eliminating it isn't going to result in the department suddenly being unable to collect ambulance fees and other sources of revenue. This is an administrative role that we would be able to, of course, with in the context of the ambulance fees, we already work with the vendor to complete a segment of that task. But overall, this is a matter of identifying opportunities to take what we have in terms of personnel in the department and perhaps maybe adding some things to the plates of some of the people who work within the department and making do without some of these administrative roles. Again, I would rather have and I hate to say it because this is not something that I am taking pleasure in, right? I want to preserve the front line firefighter positions and all these other things. And if there is any area where we can rework some of these operations, I'm looking at the administrative functions. And so it's not like this cut means that we're going to suddenly not collect ambulance fee money. So we're going to have to make do with less.
I understand that we're not going to not take the fees. What I'm saying is this person, their job has been to the chief's point, make sure that what we're sending to the insurance companies who don't like to pay is correct so that we can get paid. We're now going to implement something, according to the revenue plan, of an additional item that would fall under our ambulances or firemen. We're going to tax onto our administration to have them do more. So we're asking people to do more with less. Obviously, nobody wants to see, the first and foremost is the women and men of the fire department being safe and having the appropriate staffing. Those people run into burning buildings. I would never do it. I don't like the hot stove. But I'm just concerned that we're asking a department, they're going to lose somebody. We're going to ask them to further on to the people that we're going to have less hours because we're furloughing them a little bit. So I just feel like we're compounding a lot more onto the folks that are going to be left. That's my concern here. And I want to make sure that there's a process in place for these revenues that we're going to be approving, because when I look at this budget, the revenues are part of this budget. So having that in place, just these expenditures is fine, but the revenues are part of the full budget. So I just want to know that there's a plan in place to implement what you're saying with this department we're going to need to do.
Absolutely. No, it's a good question to raise. But what I will say is that we're not talking about adding work by way of suddenly more automatically having more people calling for ambulance services or lift assist. We're simply talking about charging more, or at least establishing a base charge for services that are already provided. And so, that's simply a goal to raise revenue. And we already have these systems in place to provide the services. It's just a matter of perhaps adding a little bit more work by way of, say, billing Methuen Village or billing Nevins Manor or whatever facility. But again, we're just going to have to put this on folks who are within the department and just getting it done.
All right.
My only question with all of these different discussion points is that we're at a point where the budget is at zero variance. And so, I think the question I have is, and I know we'll get to this on Thursday, I'll be curious to see the council's ideas in terms of how much lower we can go in a lot of these areas. I've done my best to get us to a balanced budget, do so in a way that maintains the most vital frontline services and services that residents expect, but do so in a way that is as fiscally responsible as we possibly can.
Councilor Marcian.
I'm just on overtime again. I don't see how it's going to work with furloughs. You can't get staffing hardly with regular time, and now you're going to furlough people. I just don't see it, how you're not going to pay overtime to get the people in when furlough people are, when they're not there. You can't do it now. Right? For whatever reason, the fire department can do it. The police department can do it, but your staffing can't do it. So I just don't understand when the furloughs come, how is it going to get done if there's a mandatory staffing that you have to have?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure to try to stay within that overtime budget with the furloughs.
Just to circle back, this is the same for PD, for everything. we have the opportunity to furlough or do layoffs.
I do. I understand.
That's a balance, right?
No, I'm just, the overtime is what's, because it's a big number, and it is, and we have to staff accordingly on the number of trucks, right? That's all I'm saying. I don't see it happening, that's all. I just have a hard time seeing how it's gonna work. If he can't do it now, regularly, I don't see how he's gonna do it when we know we're taking people offline, that's all.
Right. Not to sound overly simplistic, but in a year like this, we're gonna have to make it work. You know?
I get it, I do, I just don't.
Thank you, Councilor Marsan. Was the analysis done of how many layoffs these departments were going to get if you didn't do the furlough? Do you have that number? For example, fire, police?
So that's something that we would have to determine on the basis of which, unions agree to the plan.
True.
Right? So we'd get a better sense of that after the impact bargaining.
Okay, are we all set, counselors, to move on? Okay. All right. Chief, thank you for your time and the opportunity today. All right, we're next on the agenda. That's the city council. That's on page 20. So I had submitted a budget from request from the CAFO and the mayor in March. And what I did was I met with the staff in our department and I asked my previous chair kind of like how he handled it. He gave me some info. But I asked both of our clerks for some feedback. And I did submit a budget that's a little different than what is in the budget. I did email that earlier today. I circulated it. And then the mayor sent an email this afternoon asking, where do you want this number to go? So I'd like to ask, and I guess this is a question for Madam CAFO, when I sent over the wish list, which is usually what happens, they ask you to, what are the things you'd like to see on your budget? I sent over the items of overtime, office supplies, again, with the conversation with the staff and the needs there. I did send a salary adjustment, professional services, training and conferences is new. And that's if you opt into using those dollars to take a training or a conference, you don't have to pay out of your pocket. And the youth summer program, which is that new initiative from the school department and the mayor's office, to have a student work for you as council this summer so you can task them with constituent, services and any activities that you may feel your day-to-day operation doesn't allow for the entire body to handle. That's that youth program. So if we look at page 20, you will see the proposed budget by the department. The number that I'm disputing that I said was not what I submitted was the assistant council clerk. Was that adjustment? My train of thought, this body had a conversation actually in January when you guys came on regarding to her salary, and it stated the description wasn't to par. Some of you agreed that she was potentially not making the income, but because the description didn't match, you couldn't vote for it then. So without having a conversation with that staff member or promising anything, I allotted additional funding because, as you know, we also have a staff member in our office that may need time off again. And so I felt having that additional line item, it could go either way. Regardless, my understanding is the body didn't do anything, it would go back to the general fund, correct? So I felt there was no pain on that. Historically, this department, so you guys know, is very slim, has never added anything. And I feel as council department, we need to get out of that mindset. For example, when we post meetings, we actually need to depend on either our solicitor's office to have the timestamp or the clerk's office. So I made sure that there was an additional $500 in that supply line item to actually get that machine. Okay, if it's the will of the body not to have one, so we can post our own timestamp meetings, then that's your call. But I guess my question is, with the email the mayor sent and my, rebuttal on this wasn't really the number, and his question was, where would you like this line item? I thought it lived under an additional, additional salary adjustments in case needed in the future, because that's what the line item says on the second page. Like, that's what was there. So for me, I guess it's a question to you, Madam Cathell, and the mayor. How is the proper way for us to put it on there for future use? Because the intention isn't to give a raise to the employee without the council actually deciding if that's what they wanted.
So the way you can add a different line, or you can include it in one of the lines that are already there, which is what we had done. As long as it's in personal services somewhere, then the department can move it within the personal services to be wherever during the year. So for us, it was just getting it into the personal services line to make sure that it's accounted for. And that's what's happening right now. But I'm happy to add another line or put it in a separate line. We don't usually have separate lines that would say adjustments or things of that nature. So, but you want to make sure that it's in the personal services piece so that you have that flexibility that's in there. So I would suggest leaving it where it is, but I understand that that's caused some confusion. So I'd be happy to add a line if that would be more clear.
It could go under overtime?
It could go under overtime. I worried about putting it there because overtime exactly.
And then the other part is, and again, this isn't to pun you, Mr. Mayor. I know that a lot of cuts were made for other departments, but we didn't have a meeting. So we didn't actually have a dialogue as to, hey, the furloughs are in there, I understand that, but we didn't have a conversation as to how much are you willing, or I'm gonna cut X from the other items. I appreciate you didn't cut them. But I also don't want this council to look like they're not participating or contributing to the dramatic budget that we're dealing with. So that's the perception I don't want, and by all means, these councilors are willing to participate. Obviously, some of them have cuts, they've already expressed them to me. Some of them even talked about getting rid of their own stipend. Whether you guys are going to agree to get rid of your stipends, I don't know, but that may be on the floor on Thursday or Tuesday. But at the end of the day, I just don't want the perception out there that we're not participating as a body. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Just to clarify, just for how we've handled this in the past, back when I first joined the council, the chair at the time was then Councilor McCarty. Then we had Chair Steve Saba. Then I was the chair, and then Eunice Ziegler was the chair. So we had 4 chairs, and over the course of that time, what each of us would do is simply send to Mayor Perry our proposed council budget, and then it would be adopted without any changes by the administration. And so I've kept that going where when Chair Marsan last year submitted the council budget, we simply included it without any adjustments. This year, trying to do the same thing on the basis of the request made. The only change, of course, is the amount reflected for prospective furloughs. But beyond that, the goal is to keep the legislative branch's budget as they would like to see it. And that is unique in terms of the way that we otherwise will handle things, but certainly take into consideration what you're saying, and we can discuss how to, I guess, deal with that additional ask in another line item.
Thank you. Councilor Marsan.
So there is that perception out there that we're not doing anything. I feel it, that we're doing all these cuts across the city, and city council's budget isn't cut. We didn't give anything back. So I want to make a proposal at some point, it's going to be Thursday, that we give something back on our pay. I know it's not popular, just like it's not popular for laying people off and furloughing people here. But I'm willing to do it because if every other department is doing it, how can we not do it? I just say we have to contribute. We have to be part of it, and because we're vested in the city also. So I know it's not popular, and neither are any of the cuts the mayor's making, but we've got to come up with a number, and I'll propose a number on Thursday that we need to also give something back. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So that's where that percentage question I was asking from the beginning, I wanted to kind of see what everybody's, and I realized after the chief came up, you can't really, it's not apples to apples, right? But at least, 50% cut, 5% cut, I know it's going to be kind of all over the place, but I'd like to see that, Madam Capa.
Yeah, we'll have to look at, so it's 80 hours across the board, so we could figure out maybe, or talk about some way of formalizing that.
For the council?
Yeah.
As well? Okay.
Yeah, I'll think about that.
Thank you. Any other questions on our own budget? Or concerns about the numbers I added? Councilor Marsan.
So the $10,000 for the clerk too, we're going to just move that to some other place? Is that, because that's not what the purpose was of it, right? That's what you're saying?
That's my request to the mayor and the CAFO. Did you?
So I was just going to say, when you vote on Thursday, you're only going to vote on the appropriation order categories, and they're only personnel services and other expenses. You can adjust where that goes.
We're not voting. Thank you for reminding me.
But I'm just saying, the things you're looking at today are really for informational purposes and accounting purposes. You'll be voting on the overall
correct.
And it'll go to the right place. So
Okay, that's right. So I think we can leave it. I had a conversation with Councilor Samard this morning explaining kind of the situation. And he seemed to understand, but, he's going to watch this anyways. So just for clear understanding, that wasn't purposeful of a $10,000 raise, so.
I'm happy to change it or leave it. I can leave it for now and then.
I think I personally would like I don't know. Based on what the solicitor just said, he's right. You can cut 20 grand, 50 grand, $90,000. You got to get the votes to get it approved, and we're going to switch stuff around if need be, is the point. So I leave it that way. Thank you, Madam Capo. Yeah. Councilor DiZoglio.
When it comes to the salary of the council, I'm happy to cut a little bit, but with all the hours that I work, that extra check to me, and I'm trying not to be selfish, will hurt my household because I'm kind of in the same spot as many of the people of the city, where an extra check determines me getting a go and looking for another job. So I'm happy to contribute, but I'm not trying to be selfish about it, but I will have to look at my household now too. So I'm happy to do that, but
I appreciate your honesty, Counselor. Counselor, you've been quiet all day.
Thanks. I'm listening. I will back up Councilor DiZoglio a little. And with all due respect, Councilor Marsan, I think you put us in an uncomfortable position. We are so little paid for the job we do and the work we do that, to Councilor DiZoglio's point, some people can afford to do it, some people can't. I don't want to presume to know anybody's finances, but I think it's a little bit of political grandstanding, in my opinion, because, well, it is, because, you know, we're cutting from nothing. I just think it's a little silly because, you know, if I say, sure, then okay, you know, we're underappreciated and vilified anyway. And if I say no, then I'm self-serving. So I don't see it going that way. I would do this job for free, but it's not. And I think we're devaluing even further, more than we've already been devalued as a body by doing that. So just my opinion.
Thank you, Counselor. Any comments? So I think thank you, Counselor.
I guess I'll contribute to that and say that I'm more than happy to take a small cut to contribute to the cause, because I agree that we shouldn't be entirely exempt. We're not special in any way as compared to any other city employee, but to Councillor Pesch's point, we do make a very small amount of money as compared to a lot of other city employees. That's not to say that there are not plenty of city employees who are underpaid. I work 3 minimum wage jobs in addition to this to get by as a college student, so I can't afford to take that much of a cut, right? So, Councillor Zaglio, you're not alone.
Thank you for sharing. Counselor Valle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't mind giving up my stipend as long as I see that with the paid boards and the school committee members as well. So let's do it across the city, to be fair. Thank you.
Counselor Marsan.
So I never said give up our stipend. If it's 5% that the city's given up, we just gives up something is what. It's not grandstanding. It's just being part of the city. I've been here with, like most of you people, you know, forever, and it's just helping. That's all. I'm not saying give up your stipend. You know, we don't make a lot of money. I get it. We don't. But you have to do something. It's not about, you make it seem like it's, you know, everybody's here has an opinion, and I'm not saying give up your stipend. You know, I'm not asking you to give up $10,000. I'm not. But it affects everyone that's getting furloughed today, you know, that when this happens. And how do you not see that? And that's all I'm asking. And if you vote no, it's okay. It's not, I don't know, now you make it seem like I shouldn't even have said it because you think I have some game. So that's all. Thank you.
Counselor Pesch.
Thanks, and I wasn't insinuating that. I guess it's just such a minimal contribution that may hurt people on the board. And again, I just go back to like the devaluation of our board by doing that. Keeping in mind too, that most of these cuts are like department cuts, right? They're not individual. I mean, some are, but the positions for the most part are still getting COLAs, increases, whatever. So just proportionally, I get what you're saying. And, you know, if it came down to it and it was the will of the body, I could do that. I'm okay. It's not going to really affect my household, so I would go along with it. I just get very concerned again about just devaluing the worth of this council in yet a different capacity now, right? So, but I wasn't insinuating. I probably shouldn't have said political grandstanding. It's more of putting us in an uncomfortable position.
Counselor, you weren't here yesterday, but that seems to be a trigger word for us.
Sorry.
So no pun intended. But hey, Counselor Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Salary conversations are always uncomfortable. Doesn't matter what job you're in, doesn't matter what your financial situations are, no matter how you handle it, it is always an uncomfortable conversation. Looking at that, people's finances are people's finances. That's between them and their checkbook and their bank. My concerns to this budget that we have is we're adding in items on a year that is a tight year. When we talk about the trainings, and I completely agree, there are trainings that are needed. Being a freshman counselor, there are things that I don't know. But MMA has webinars that we're allowed to do for free. There are things that we can watch, things that we can do. So to me, that line item, that would go. I would get rid of that. I would get rid of the, the office supplies. I would probably trim some fat out of that. I mean, I've gone 6 months at this point without business cards. I'm happy to go and buy some business cards at Staples. It doesn't, I will take that out of my stipend that I get from being a counselor and input that back into the city. So just to not embarrass anybody or make anybody feel like they're out of place, because again, salary conversations are a difficult and uncomfortable conversation. And I appreciate any members who've brought anything forward and opened up personally, and that thank you. But I would look at the other items outside of the personnel, and I think there's some personnel items in there, maybe cutting down some of that overtime that's in there. We didn't use much of that last year. We used a little more than we should have last year, but I think we should be able to curb some of that. There's definitely other items in this budget that I feel we can come down on before getting too deep into it.
Counselor Santos, and then I'm going to go to the CAPA.
I would just go, I would piggyback on Councilor Bali with, if we're going to have a cat, we should go across the board and just have everyone chip in. And let's be fair.
Thank you.
For the wealth of our city.
So it's 4%.
4%. Okay, so you have your percentage. 4%. Okay.
Just to share a thought, in terms of overtime in this budget, what you'll see is that from this point forward, the only departments that will have overtime in their budget, I left it in the council budget unchanged, of course, given the history of doing that. However, every other department in this building will no longer have overtime after July 1st. We're going to need folks to flex. We're going to have to be creative with that. Just to provide some information about the overtime aspect of everything.
Okay. Did you have something else to say? Okay, all right. Counselor Santos.
So a question to the mayor, Madam Chair. So how come do we have overtime in this building when the building is closed on Fridays?
So historically, the council budget has always had overtime, HHSI, from an inspection standpoint, et cetera, they've sometimes required overtime. Aside from that, it's very limited, but going forward, we're only maintaining it for police, fire, and DPW.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that's a line item if they wanted to cut, they could probably get rid of as well. But I guess my question, maybe I should have clarified that with the clerks. Is that what they use when they come to the meeting? So that's separate than their salary?
It's overtime.
It's overtime, so you take it out of, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they get, their regular salary goes to the salary line, and any overtime would go to that separate line.
Okay, so they would be doing that for free, basically,
or flex their
Unless
time.
they flex.
So if they stay for 4 hours, then flex your time for 4 hours.
Flex means not be here.
Meaning don't come in. So like, for example, if they worked 4 hours here, then don't come in on Friday because you've hit your 35 hours.
Okay.
That's an example.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we good to move on? Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, your budget. Page 21.
Yes, page 21. This is very straightforward. We are putting my office, I think, in probably a condition that we haven't seen it in terms of staffing going back to, if history serves me well, my knowledge of that, the Dennis DiZoglio days back in the 1990s. We are taking a 25% hit to the personal services line just in terms of FTEs. And we're going to simply have to do what every other department in the city is doing, which is to do more with less. I know other municipalities, for instance, like the city of Lawrence, I know in Mayor DePena's budget, they have a total of 8 FTEs in the mayor's office aspect of the department. I'm pitching 3, and Again, this is the year of all years to really tighten things up and do everything we can to provide the services and help we need to provide, but do so in a way where we're simply doing more with less.
All right, counselors, do you have questions on the mayor's budget? Okay. Counselor Santos, and I'm going to DeZaga.
Just for point of information, what is the constituent service?
So this is a position that has traditionally assisted with aspects of various programs, like, for instance, the trash program, accompanying me to various events, helping with constituent services by way of fielding calls from residents and the like. So these are simply functions that we're going to have to take on internally with even myself, et cetera. So it's a function that I think is important in the context of providing constituent services. But this is an instance where if you look at the way the phone system works in our office, it'll ring at the other desks, and typically it only comes to me if someone transfers it to me. I will be answering the phone in the office. I will have no choice. And so we're going to do more with less.
Counselor?
Through you, Member Chair, food and related items, etc., is that like for events? Or
So whenever we have events here at City Hall, anything for employee events and the like, for instance, we'll do events surrounding like the Super Bowl, and we have a spread for employees, retirement gatherings. Whenever an employee retires, we'll maybe have a spread, something like that. We have a Christmas holiday party for employees, and so that all comes out of the food line item.
and also other events like holidays, etc. I think you did like Dominican Independence Day.
Yep.
But that would all come out of this budget as
Yep.
well.
Right.
Counselor Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mayor, I see you've got communications, public information at $10,000. What it looks like you didn't use all that much in 26 from what's encumbered and what's been expended to that point when I got this report. What's driving the 10,000?
So this had been previously budgeted significantly higher during Mayor Perry's administration to account for the actual mailing out of newsletters to residents, physical newsletters, not electronic ones. And over time, that's been cut back. And now at this point, we maintain an arrangement with John Guilfoyle Public Relations to assist with communicating with the press, getting out information to residents, but also to take care of things like at least electronic newsletter development, things like that. And so this is the only line item that we have from an administration standpoint to be able to have those types of services provided in the context of public information for residents.
Okay, thank you. And then your dues and subscriptions, it's minimal, but again, you went from 35, you cut 500, you're at 3,000. Looks like you're expending about 1,500 this year. Is there a lot of re-ups that we have this year?
Yeah, so we cover, for instance, the membership that we have with the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, things like that, that are utilized by various departments, but that'll come out of this line. I've eliminated last year and this year any expenses for travel that had previously been budgeted at $2,000. I pay for my own gas and all my own travel expenses, so there's no need to budget for that. And so this really covers the Merrimack Valley Chamber subscription. The city has a subscription to things like the Eagle Tribune. That all comes out of this. And so it's pretty limited in terms of what that covers. We do have a citywide membership with the MMA, Massachusetts Municipal Association. That's something that the council was also able to benefit from. That actually comes out of the CAFO's budget, which we'll cover in further detail, I'm sure. But we're pretty limited in terms of the number of memberships that we have. Something else that I didn't share earlier, and this is going to apply to every department in fiscal year 27, we are going to, in essence, have a one-year ban on any type of travel for conferences, things like that. That's something that various department heads will utilize in terms of professional development and networking. It's something that we're not going to be able to do any of in fiscal year 27. So we're going to keep everybody close to home. Granted, not a part of my office's budget, but I thought I'd throw it out there because it's related to this discussion.
Thank you, and I do recognize that your office is at pretty much bare bones, so thank you.
Councilor Santos.
Madam Chair, to Councilor Bisoglio. Since the $5,000 that are allocated for food and related items were used for the Dominican Independence Day, maybe we should allocate more money for other activities for the city.
No. I think.
So the event was, we were able to fund the event through that line item,
Oh, okay, that's what the mayor.
among many other events that we hold.
Yeah, that was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it was.
But
multiple
now
events.
that we're talking about that, the council, the cultural council, can they handle those events since we don't have? Shouldn't it go through them to handle some of these events that we host? Not particular. I'm not saying particularly that. I'm saying the slew of events that.
We could possibly look into working
Yeah, I
with
think
them
that would
on
be
some help with that, yeah.
Thank you. How are we feeling? We good? It's getting late. I got CAFO accounting and then debt service, which I'm assuming is.
It's me, both.
Both you, okay, all right, let's do
And I'm
this.
going to make this quick and hopefully painless.
I'm sorry, page 22 and 42, but we're on 22 right now. And then we'll go to 42.
Yep, so I put CAFO and accounting on the same page, knowing that I'd be doing both. So they're both on 22. So both of these are straightforward. I'm going to talk about the CAFO first. It's very small. It's really my salary. And then, as the mayor mentioned, our MMA, the citywide MMA association subscription, or dues, I should say, that we pay for the city, it comes out of there. And we paid like $8,700 in fiscal year 26, so we're anticipating a slight increase and sticking with the 9,000. That's really all that comes out. I always budget a little bit of professional services, and quite frankly, I use it for other departments that need a little. I think that's what we used it for multiple years. It's only $1,000, but it does help every so often when a department needs $500 or $600 or $700. I can offset with that. But that's really it. CAFO. Happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, guys, any questions for the CAFO right now? No?
So accounting, that's the finance department. So included in accounting is all of the personal services for accounts payable, the purchasing department, finance department, and payroll all come from those salary lines. For other expenses, the stationery supplies and paper that you see there, that's for all of City Hall. So you'll see supplies for the mayor's office as far as paper, pens, all of that stuff, that comes out of that line. So we do, it's a way for us to manage and make sure that, we're sharing resources if we can. So that comes, all of the city hall comes out of there. Payroll.
Can I mention something quick about paper? Not to sound like a cheapskate, but I really want to limit our use of paper, given our general ability to do things electronically these days. I just want to throw that out there.
Other things that are included in the accounting budget is payroll services and all of the municipal audit requirements. So you'll see multiple lines there for audit. We're required to have a financial audit annually from an outside vendor. So you'll see that on the municipal audit line, but also the actuarial GASB 45 OPEB, that is part of our retirement. They do the calculations for us. It's a GASB requirement. So we pay that out of the accounting budget as well. The only other line that's there is the grant procurement and administration line, and I didn't know if you want to talk about that directly.
Yeah, so I referenced this earlier tonight, where last year we only funded partially what that would truly entail in terms of full bore program. This includes enough funding for a full year to really double down on this. Also, as I referenced, we have contract circulating in terms of getting signatures with the vendor and the like, and so that's something that committed to trying to get off the ground in fiscal year 26, and we're on track to do that and have a full program in fiscal year 27 to assist our departments and really focus on amping up our efforts, our existing efforts, establishing a grants dashboard, which we've never had before, to provide some more synchronized efforts across departments, helping with the schools. There's a lot that's going to go on with that on top of what's already happening in terms of the effort.
I'm sorry, are you done with okay. The private sector, where the fields I work, went digital on all contracts since like 2016. So we got rid of all paper. It is beautiful. I'm so happy that you guys are doing that. Questions for the Matt Caffo on accounting. So I have a question for you. And again, not to pinpoint any of these positions, but there are 7, is it 7 positions, or we got rid of a position in your department?
Yeah, so there's 8 current positions. We're reducing that to 7.
To 7, okay. All right. And the furloughs in your department, you don't have overtime in your department?
No, we don't have
Strictly,
overtime. And if we do, for some reason, labor-wise, then we handle it within the department, but very, very rare.
Okay.
And just as far as the furloughs go, just the pain in all of the departments. So we process payroll. The city's still on weekly payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's going to affect our department from that perspective, in that we are still going to need to do that along with that, and we're reducing by 1 payroll person. So that pain is being seen in real time across the board. But again, what's the least worst thing?
Yeah. Councilor Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just alluded to payroll. What's the outlook of going to a biweekly payroll? Is that something that you guys are exploring, the possibility of taking some of that burden off with the reduction in staffing?
So it's definitely something we're talking about. I think it would be wonderful. The schools are biweekly, but the city's not. I do believe it's in the contracts that we can do it. So I think it's just something that we need to discuss with the unions, even though it may or may not be in the contract. I think it's still something out of respect that we can. That's a change for them. So
It's obviously we
But it
talked
is
about
something we're
salaries
looking
and money earlier, so it's a conversation, and you can't just do it. 'Cause
right,
people
and
are
with
in
the
a different
changes to
situation.
Munis too, I think it's like the timing's probably right. So we're looking at those things.
Okay. The other question I have is, I receive a paper pay stub. Can't that go electronic? I mean, I receive it with my company that I work for, everything's electronic. We have an app. I can go through and see all of it.
So that's part of the change when the move over to processing payroll through Munis. It'll all be electronic. In that, something that we don't have for employees right now is at a portal where you can go in and look at your own stuff. If you need something, information, you've got to call my office or my department and ask for it. So that is part of what we're implementing, is a portal that you can then get your own pay stubs and W-2s and all of that, request time off. So all of that is part of what we're trying to do. Included in that will be that you'd only get the checks if you actually are getting a check, as opposed to what we're doing now. But I'm told that Harper's is telling me that it doesn't cost us any more to get the paper checks right now. So I'm looking into that. But
The other question, and you've kind of alluded to it with Munis, I mean, I think we've heard of that ad nauseum. We spoke about this about a month ago. We had a conversation when we did a transfer of money because Munis was supposed to be up and running last year. The conversation was you didn't have the staff to make sure that it was implemented. Now we're seeing a reduction in your staff. Is Munis going to be up and running in FY27?
that is the plan.
Halfway through, at the end of it, what are we thinking?
The schedule for implementation is actually established by Tyler Technologies, which owns this whole Munis aspect. So that's something that is ultimately established by the vendor.
So we're paying somebody that won't tell us when they're going to allow us to use the service?
No, so they're establishing the time frame for us in conjunction with the staff who's actually working on the system, right? But they ultimately communicate to us when they expect that we'll be up and running. So it's not something that we say, all right, we're going to be up and running by May the 1st. They'll say, well, given our timetable for where we are in terms of implementation, we're looking at X date, and this is something that's implemented in blocks, and we are actually ahead of where other municipalities are in terms of implementation. There are some that take multiplied years and years to do it, so we're trying to get it expedited as soon as we can, but it's ultimately something that's established by Tyler Technologies, and the CAFO can elaborate.
So do we pay Tyler Technologies? Are we their client?
Yes.
So if we're their client, when my client calls and says, when is this getting done? I answer their question. Can we call them and say, hey, when is this getting done?
So we're, excuse me, we're having those conversations right now because they think that we should delay until January 1st.
Of course they do. They want us to keep spending money.
So
I get it. Let's string them along
Louis
until
is
it's done.
phenomenal, and he's pushing back hard, and so we're literally having these conversations right now. I'll be honest with you, losing a payroll person absolutely is going to create a struggle for my department, but it's going to mean that I roll my sleeves up and I'm doing it too. So we'll have to figure it out. But that is actually an ongoing conversation between the IT department and
So with the IT department and the payroll, I mean, we talked about a month ago, when you hire somebody or you do something, it's done in paper and everything has to be signed in triplicate and moved around this building. I mean, you just said you want to eliminate the paper. Are we on track to put hiring paperwork or anything into electronic?
So we're doing it electronically right now. As far as PDF, we use PDF. So HR will start a PDF form and we'll send it around electronically. So instead of literally walking the paper, it is being done electronically and saving that paper. So we are making strides in the direction of, so there has been improvement there, yes.
So in 26, it looks like we're going to use about $100,000 in payroll services.
Yep.
You're allocating $50,000 here. Are we coming back to the council looking for another $50,000 halfway through the year?
The plan is not obviously, if we thought we would need 100,000, that's what would be there. Obviously, we've had to come back beforehand, so I would like to say no, but I can't guarantee anything.
We're having to tighten our belt and do more with less.
I mean, you allocated $50,000 last year, then we came back, took another $50,000. And I just don't want to see Groundhog Day happen again.
Me neither.
So please call our vendor and say, get me an answer, and I can promise you it will be on our next council agenda. When will this be implemented? And it will be there until we get an answer from our person that we're paying. Thank you.
Going to Councilor McLaren. You've been patiently waiting.
I just had a question about furloughs specifically, I guess in this context, but in all contexts across every department it impacts. This might have an obvious answer that I'm missing, but I mean, furloughs are already a financial burden, but I'm thinking about the structure of what that, I guess time off is the best word to use. I can't think of a better one. What that looks like and how involved are those employees in deciding what those hours then look like? Because I'm thinking about they're already facing a financial burden in the furloughs, and I don't want there to be an additional burden in terms of changes to their hours, if that makes sense.
So those are discussions that we'll be having with the unions as far as how those, because it's different for every union. We've talked about it a little bit tonight with the public safety. What would look one way for fire is going to look different for City Hall, and what that all looks like. So really, we're just trying to pinpoint the amount that we need, and then once the budget is complete, we'll meet with the unions and figure out what's best for everybody.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All set? So Councilor McLaren just triggered a thought. And this may be a rumor. There was an email sent out of what the furlough is going to be in this building, and it's going to be Monday and Friday. Is that accurate? Because in my head, I was thinking, why not rotate what departments are off?
Yeah, so that's not going to be the case. So what we're looking at right now to achieve the 80 hours, at least here in City Hall, is to close the building starting first week of July every Friday during the summer, only Fridays.
Okay.
Taking advantage of piggybacking off of long weekends. So looking at, for instance, in October, there's going to be the Columbus Day long weekend, closing City Hall that Friday. Looking at the week between Christmas and New Year's, there's very few people in the building anyway at that time. That will get us a long ways to that point. And then, if we're able to have perhaps additional influxes in revenue over the course of the year, we can reassess and place additional limits on it.
Okay.
But we're not looking at Mondays and Fridays. It would just be Fridays during the summer.
Okay, thank you. I guess my inclination to discuss I came in here, I don't know if it was the day that it was announced, and I really felt the energy real heavy, and it was very, I made a comment to the clerks because everybody was just really down, and I was, I come in here all cheery, and I'm like, what's going on? And I felt the energy. So I know that there are some of our employees that this is going to really affect them, and they may leave us because it's not going to work out for them. Okay, so we have debt service. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to pass this out really quick.
And that's on page 42, guys, and there's an additional form.
Just while she's doing that, so you know, you can't cut debt service, it's illegal.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that. I think we said that last year. Thank you.
So what I'm passing out, well, first let me back up. So debt service is our literal, that's what it is. It's what we owe still for payments on interest, for our principal and interest payments on outstanding bonds that we have in the city. And so what I thought would be helpful to show really is just what that schedule looks like. This is a schedule, and it looks a little overwhelming, so I apologize, but it's the best I could do to simplify it. But basically, this is all of the current outstanding bonds that we have in the city. This is governmental and water sewer all included in one schedule. And basically, what you could see here is a description of what the bond is that's outstanding. I've given you the balance of what we are starting fiscal year 27 with outstanding, payments that we'll make during the year, and then what will be outstanding at the end of the fiscal year. And this is just to give you an idea of where those funds are going. And you can see that some of them have zero balances because we've paid off the bond in the last couple of years. What you won't see on here is the fiscal year 26 CIP because that's still in the process of being bonded. So that'll be added once that's complete. But as I mentioned at the council meeting last night, we significantly reduced what that looks like for fiscal year 26 so that those payments basically will bond in 1 year so that in the next, your payment doesn't hit to the next year. So that's a strategic way that we do it. And that we don't bond until the spring in order to defer those payments to the next year. So as we were looking at this budget, as tight as it is, we thought it would be best to do that. I won't go more into that because we talked about it last night, but so basically what you see budgeted for in those lines is this document plus what we're estimating for fiscal year 26 CIP, which is significantly less. That first column on the budget, the department includes the original full amount bonding, that full amount of the CIP, and then the reductions column is reflective of the changes that we made by reducing that bond. So we just kind of wanted to show you what we did there. Also, I know this is a lot, so if you look at it and have questions tomorrow or Thursday or whenever, happy to answer them. I know it's a lot of information. I just thought it would be helpful to see it in detail.
We really, and I'll go to you guys, we really, like the solicitor said, we really can't do any changes to the debt service anyways. The only control that we have is when we're voting on the bond.
Yeah.
So,
Madam Chair.
yes,
I'm
Councilor Valley, then Drew.
I think the mayor wants to.
Just to add some additional context, I think one great example of a CIP project that is something that we are maintaining ongoing funding in CIPs year after year is funding, of course, for our roads, right? So we have right now available money that we're using in terms of Chapter 90. We have money from last year's CIP that we're able to allocate towards that as well. So that's why we're getting after, for instance, the full depth reclamation projects now. There's many other streets on the list that are only going to require milling and paving work. And so the intent is we're going out to bid for that in short order, but we would then actually engage in those services after July 1st so that it wouldn't hit the fiscal year 27 debt service line. So work is still getting done in the context of these CIP projects. We're just going to punt on a couple of them until having like a start date after July 1st so that we don't impact the debt service payment. Just wanted to throw that out there because then it's a big ticket item that we need to get after.
Councilor Valley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the CAFO. This is just for educational purposes. What is an inside debt limit and an outside? Well, like, what is the difference? Can you explain that to me,
It's the
please?
type of debt. So there's a debt. I wonder if I could find something that there's inside and outside the debt limit. So every municipality is issued a debt limit, and it's based off of a calculation. But it's how so. It's the way a bond. It sounds worse than it is. It's the way a bond is. I know is issued, whether it's inside or outside. What you'll see is a lot of our like our MWPAT rehab loans. Those are loans. They're not really bonds. So meaning we pay them back. So those are outside the debt limit. Like there's different rules for each one. I'm trying to not complicate it. It's a different way to borrow. I'm going to try and find something that simplifies that and send it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I did not do a good job.
Councilor Drew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last night, I believe we discussed, refinancing of debt, so forth and so on, looking at interest rates with our bond rating being what it is. Looking at the money that sits in free cash and dividends that we see returned, have we looked at closing some of these smaller line items, what the beneficial would be of getting rid of some of these debts versus what we're getting in on money sitting on the free cash, right? So if we get $1 million a year, I don't have it directly in front of me because of the $20 million that we have sitting there, but if we pay off a few of these, we might see savings on our interest of $1.1 million. I mean, is that a beneficial number? How often are we doing that?
So we look at that every year when we're looking at the CIP stuff, and we talk to bond council about it every year when we're looking to bonds, because if we can refinance, that's when we would do it, is when we're doing a bond elsewise. That said, a lot of, there's two pieces to the debt as far as the savings on money, and yes, if we can do a lesser interest or save money on those payments, absolutely. But there's a benefit, and that's really what's been driving our debt plan or our capital improvement plan, is that there's value in having debt service. There's value in having outstanding bonds. It actually improves
There's
our
good
bond
debt, bad
rating.
debt.
Good rating, yes. You just made me so happy saying that. Yes, good debt and bad debt. And we're at a place where we actually are on the low end of what's appropriate for having bonds outstanding, which is why we have our capital improvement plan, because it keeps us in the right zone. So paying them off will actually work against us as far as dipping us below that level. And so now our bond rating is actually looking more negatively at it because we are already in that lower tier. But it's a balance. It's a constant balance. So if we can save more by refinancing, we will. And it is something that we look at annually.
Basically, banks like to see you have money loans so they can make money, so they want to keep
And that
money.
you're making improvements in the city.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselors?
I was just going to carry on from Councilor Drew with, good debt and bad debt, but some of these smaller ones that have we ever thought, like $841, something like that we could cover probably with a small amount of free cash, which then would keep our bond rating of that good debt, because just like your credit score, credit cards see that you're not using it, they drop your credit score. So I'm saying, though, if you cover these smaller debts, and I might not know from a municipality's point of view, but because of these bigger ones, our bond rating should be good because of our good debt that we still continuously have.
So so if you look at that first page, for example, and you see, $22,000 are outstanding, that's actually one piece of a bigger bond. You'll see that in the description section, issue 12-1807 is on multiple lines, and if you add all of those up, you're over $2 million. So that's what we would have to pay off, that amount. You can't pay down a bond. So it's not, so we've broken it out because they might be water versus sewer versus general government, but that bond is not 22, it's 2.2.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Well, if there are no further questions, that concludes this evening. I do want to say something before we go. The one thing that when I read the budget that I was kind of disappointed on was using the meals tax again and 100%, and that is because I understand from a lot of my own frustration, that's the only dollar that the mayor could potentially tap into to help us do some of the projects that we'd like to do in the city that's not using taxpayer dollars. For example, the unaccepted roads, if we had to, and some of the projects that the councilors have, I would like to do. And I recall last year on our budget, when we voted for it, it was said that this year it would go back. Obviously, it was a promise with kind of like depending where we are. I get it. At the end of the day, if we were to revert to what it was, what is that?
So it was 75-25, so 25% would go to the stabilization. We're budgeting for, hold on one second. I think we got 1.4, 1.3. I just want to see what we've forecasted.
So for clarity, the meals tax original because I went all the way back to when it was done, and then it never made it to the stabilization, to the meals tax fund. And then it, that resolution then came in to actually go in there. So you're telling me that reverting it still only gets the fund 25%, or am I looking at it backwards?
I believe the fund only gets 25%.
So just
I need to
clarify,
understand, yeah.
So originally, meals tax revenue can go 100% to the general fund if the city wishes. But in two different resolutions, the city decided to create a stabilization fund and divert 25% of that to the stabilization fund, and that's where it sits. So that's the last vote. You're only supposed to, I will say too, you're only supposed to change this once every 5 years, but anyway. What happened is the council agreed to suspend that stabilization fund for the last year, which basically allowed 100% of it to go back to the general fund revenue. But there was a sunset clause on what you passed, and so that expires on June 30th, and it will revert to the prior vote, which was 75-25. So that's where you are. So to change that, there's going to have to be another vote.
Correct, but what I'm saying is sunset clauses also kind of have like their expiration date. You can't rely on a sunset clause forever. Well, I mean, we can...
The way that it was written right now is that as of June, without taking any action, as of July 1st, it's 75-25. So we would have to have the council vote again to suspend it for another year.
But at that vote, they could also amend that.
Yes.
They have that right. So they could say, no, we want 100%. No, we want 50-50. No. So that's the only thing, because I felt, and in this, I just feel not having an ability to say to the mayor, hey, I know you're struggling or whatever, but we'd like money for this endeavor, or this, it's late for me,
So
sorry.
I would just say that the 75-25, the mayor can appropriate that revenue for any and all purposes. It's just general fund revenue. So it doesn't restrict what it can be used for. It just diverts. It's right now it's putting 25% into the stabilization.
Correct. But what I'm trying to say is he's obviously allocating for its use. So it's not like he'll say, well, I took, yeah, Counselor, that's my point, as Mr. Solicitor. The thing with it having it go to the meals tax fund, you see the growth of those dollars going in there and potentially have the ability to make the request. Because what is the amount that was going in versus what it's going in now? I mean, 100% is in general fund.
So we're budgeting for 1.3 million going into the general fund. So that would have been going in
to the stabilization.
So there's over $5 million in stabilization right now. We're just not contributing additional funds at this point. I didn't say it was-
Yeah, no, we're not touching it. But just to clarify my intent, kind of my why behind maintaining it at least for another year, it's that, right now, stabilization is in a good place, fairly speaking. So, this is typically a revenue bucket that you can, in essence, equate it to, if you're to simplify it in layman's terms, refer to it as a rainy day fund type thing, right? And my thinking is that this year, given all of the cost constraints that cities like Methuen, across Massachusetts, across the country are facing, this year it's pouring, right? And so I think it's smart to try to ensure that this fund is going to the general fund, simply because we're in the process of talking about furloughs, layoffs. I think if we were in maybe a better spot, if we had savings this year in the context of health insurance, if we had savings in some of these other areas, then we could probably talk about reverting it back to that prior format that we had been using. But it's a tough year, and considering the human impact, I would not feel right having that revenue going into stabilization when it could be put to use to try to save some jobs.
Counselor Drew.
So of the meals tax, you're anticipating 1.375 million. So we're talking about $343,000 that you're looking to add on to the city budget to help subsidize and pay for positions, pay for everything else kind of going on throughout the city.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. And I said one other question that just kind of, I should have asked a little earlier. When we're looking at all the employees, everybody's getting their COLA and step, and then we're furloughing on that, correct?
Yes.
So, all right. Just trying to make sure I understand how that all furloughed down. Thank you.
Counselor Santos.
To the council. So once we know how much funding we're going to receive from the state, are we going to revise this budget?
So if we end up getting additional funds from the state, then we can, I don't want to say reopen the budget because that's not what it sounds like, but we can allocate the additional funds. So if for some reason, if hopefully they come back and say, we're going to give you $500,000 more or $5 million more, then we could come back to the council and say, we want to we want to allocate these new funds. And as long as we do that before the tax rate is set, which we'll absolutely know because the state, well, I really hope the state would have their budget done by then we'll be able to do that.
So Councilor Santos, also something to add to that, just so you know, the area that would be potentially impacted most beneficially by, say, last-minute influx of additional state aid would be the school department by way of Chapter 78 that comes in above and beyond the governor's budget, additional support for the special education circuit breaker accounts across the Commonwealth and the like. And so, for instance, what happened last year, the budget that we had figured for the schools was roughly $110.6 million. And so originally, within the confines of that number, based on the original governor's budget, the impact to the school department was looking to be quite severe. But with that influx of additional Chapter 70 funds, additional circuit breaker funds that the Senate was able to provide at the last minute in June, they were able to fit a lot more within that number. And so, I've given the schools this number to work with, roughly $114 million this year. And so, at this point, if the Senate does come through with additional help in the context of Chapter 70 and special ed circuit breaker, that will help them immensely fit more within that number.
I will note, too, that's not foreign. It does happen. I remember the year, it was 2021, we had a tight year because of COVID. The state was very delayed on setting their budget. So we ended up in the end of the summer or early fall, we actually ended up getting a few $100,000 more, and we did come back and we were able to allocate those funds. So we would do something similar.
Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, I think we're ready to go. I want to thank you guys all for staying engaged, staying present, being cordial, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Councilor Drew, seconded by Councilor DeZoglio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It is
Good night,
now.
Methuen.